Well, it's the start of a new week, a brand new one, Teraba, like we'll say in Ghana. And we are glad to be here to come into your homes. And I'm sure you're glad to have us as well. Thank you for always joining us. My name is Benjamin Akapo, and I'm in good company with Bernice Abubedu Lanza. And this is what we're serving you this morning. So right after the news, we'll be joined by Suleiman Abrahima, Executive Secretary, Media Foundation for West Africa. He'll be joining us for the news review. And then we get into our big stories. And today, the initial focus is on exiting health professionals in the country who seek greener pastures abroad. Now, a matter of national concern it is, and an imminent threat to health service delivery in the country, as over 1,200 nurses left the country in the year 2022. But we ask, how do we stem the tide of this? We'll be bringing you details of that with an in-depth conversation on the matter. We're also looking at the torrential rains which are destroying property, not just in Accra, but in Ho. We're there with updates, and we'll be telling you about how residents are coping with that situation. The rains come every year. We've still not got a leash on the rain and the impact it has on our society. And there you have it. Well, today also being a Monday, we'll bring you another installment of Drive Safe. And that is the shape of the show for today. Just stay with us, share your thoughts as we go. If you have someone celebrating a special day today, shoot us that message in the course of the news review. And we'd love to hear from you when we activate the phone lines. On that note, let's settle for the news up next. Thank you for staying with us. The news is up next. And in our first story, some residents of Ho are counting their losses after heavy rains caused their shops and homes to flood. Rainwater on Saturday swept through the town, wreaking havoc in the suburbs downstream, destroying goods and property worth millions of Ghana cedis. No casualty was recorded.
Resident in Bankoy, Akpenamawu, Ajimakofe, Polyclinic, Ho Technical University, barracks, prisons, medical villages, powerhouse, and Donokoji, among other suburbs, suffered the effect of the floods. Almost everything in a textile shop and a Stina Na enterprise, popularly known as Awonye, was washed away by the flood. The flood water broke the back of the shop and swept through. No injury was recorded. The shop owner, Ella Ati, asserted that a small-sized culvert that had sections blocked with pipelines was a major cause of the flood breaking into her shop.
54 years.
I came to Ho when I was 16. I am now 54. We have never experienced any form of flooding until the pipes were stationed there. I am telling the authorities, we have already lost our properties. But what happens if a life is lost? They must address this situation.
Some victims at Bankoy were seen counting their losses. They blamed recent developments along the Kabakaba Hill and the small size of the drains in the area.
Kabakaba Hills is now taking a huge development of hotels and houses. And you know, the rainfall flows from the mountain to the ground or the down here. And this is what we are suffering now. Because when you see the volume of water flowing from the mountain top down there, down to this place where we are now, it's very great.
How many miles? Make the mile.
It is overwhelming. Our chief was here and promised to do it himself. He took our pictures the first time we experienced the flooding situation and gave us some money. Until today, nothing has been done about it.
A team from the whole Municipal Assembly and the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, has been visiting the affected areas to ascertain the extent of damage. Ivy Maukbamo is the Volta Regional NADMO Director.
Officers are also on ground with myself. We are still taking the assessment reports and then the necessary actions that need to be taken for the final result. So that question will definitely be answered latest by close of day. Then we know the actual number of people that have been affected.
The Ho Municipal Chief Executive, Divine Boson, said the drainage system of Ho must be redesigned and constructed entirely to prevent future flooding.
We need a lot of drains in town. We must build a lot of drains to contain the volume of waters that are passing through these waterways.
NADMO has promised to mobilize and respond to victims who may need some relief after the final assessment.
Let's talk politics now. And flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, is alerting the Electoral Commission of the party's readiness to fight back electoral malpractices in the 2024 election. He claims the EC is in a potential tangent to manipulate outcomes of the general elections. According to Mahama, the Commission's new Ghana Card Identification Directive will deprive some Ghanaians of their right to vote. Clinton Yeboah has more in this report.
Despite the opposition from sections of the populace, the Electoral Commission is proceeding with the use of the Ghana card for the compilation of the new voters register. This leaves non-Ghana card-bearing Ghanaian voters incapable to participate in the 2024 general elections. The flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress describes the new directive as unnecessary. John Mahama believes the NPP will fasten on the bendable EC leadership and activities to retain power.
The new patriotic party led by President Akufo-Addo has shown that they are prepared to resort to electoral manipulation through the pliant and partisan leadership of the Electoral Commission to hang on to power. It is our responsibility to give expression and manifestation to the desire of the Ghanaian people for change by remaining eternally vigilant and ensuring that the change is secured through democratic means and that no effort at undermining the change through rigging or other form of manipulation will succeed. It is in this light that we in the NDC wish to make clear that we will resist and prevent any sinister plot by the EC to manipulate the outcome of the 2024 elections, even before the first ballot is cast, through the needless and ununderstandable insistence on the Ghana card as the only means of registration. The EC remains intransigent and appears determined to make it difficult for sections of our population to have their names on the voters' register by restricting identification for that purpose to only the Ghana card, which, as we all know, is not available to all Ghanaians. The problems of our country are legion, and the failure of this government have been spectacular on all fronts. To the young people of Ghana represented here by the vibrant members of New Stain, I urge you not to lose hope.
The former president was speaking at the Alumni Connect of the Tertiary Education Institutions Network of NDC at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. The Alumni Connect mobilizes leaders of the NDC and mentor the young members of the party for active political engagement. This year's event was themed Empowering Teen, Unlocking Potentials, Building the Bridges of Change. The president of the association, Selma Yuda, is admonishing the party's youth wing to join the struggle to wrestle power from the NPP.
It's not only just about teen, but also the youth in the country. Even if you are not a polling agent, you can mobilize people from your jurisdiction, wherever you live, wherever you work. You can preach the good word of the NDC, and you can preach the name of John Dramani Mahama come 2024.
Reporting for
Now, various speakers at a forum organized by the National Commission on Civic Education on the prevention or prevention and containing violent extremism have urged Ghanaians to be more vigilant and report suspicious characters to the security agencies. They are not happy that in the advent of terrorism and jihadist groups that are replete in neighboring, strangers should not be entertained, urging the citizenry not to devour information to people they don't know. The PCVE program is funded by the European Union. Joy News Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from WA.
Ghana is considered to be an oasis of peace and stability and a beacon of hope in a sub-region that has some of its countries overtaken by extremist or jihadist groups. The presence and operations of these terrorists and violent extremists in these countries poses a threat and great danger to security in the country. The National Commission on Civic Education, NCCE, with funding from the European Union, launched the Preventing and Containing Violent Extremism, PCVE, program in 5 regions in the northern belt of the country and 3 adjoining regions, namely Oti, Bono and Bono East regions. For the past few weeks, the Upper West Region's Office of the NCCE has been busy sensitizing and educating various identifiable groups, including students from tertiary institutions in the region, on the PCVE program. Addressing students at the National Jan Ahmadiyya College of Education, Acting Commission Secretary of the NCCE, lawyer Lucille Helet Anan, urged the students to be vigilant and report suspicious characters to the police.
So please, when you are in your community, be vigilant. Know what is going on in your community. If you see a strange person, please, at least if you see a strange car hovering around, all you can do is take the car number. So please, there are bad people. Like I told you, there can be violent extremism without terrorism. There are bad people in our community who will come to our community to kidnap children, to kidnap boys for rituals. And so it behoves on you to survey your community. And when you see strange people, say something. If you see something, say something.
Upper West Region's Director of the NCCE, Victor Nwoko, revealed that the African Sahel region is increasingly becoming a safe haven for terrorist and extremist groups, calling for efforts to be made to resolve conflict situations that gives way to terrorism.
The Global Terrorism Index, GTI, estimates that Africa's Sahel region, comprising of the countries West and Central Africa, currently account for 43% of the world's terrorism deaths. Efforts must also be made to resolve conflicts situations that give rise to terrorism. We need to preach among ourselves peaceful coexistence devoid of ethnicity or religion.
Upper West Regional Crimes Officer of the Ghana Police Service, ACP Redouncement, called on the citizenry to take personal initiatives to protect themselves first before informing the security agencies.
They may come pretending to be your friend, pretending to be a member of your religious sect, pretending to be an old schoolmate, pretending to be a member of a distant member of your family. But please, let us be wary of such people. In other words, you should not trust anybody. You should not trust anybody, especially strangers. Ghanaians are so hospitable that the moment someone comes and starts narrating his or her story, we buy into it, and being so religious, we start accommodating them. This is very dangerous. Let us be careful with such attitudes.
Dean of Students at the National Jan Ahmadiyya College of Education, Fadila Saidu Brahima, who chaired the function, commended the NCCE and the European Union for the program, stating that it is an eye-opener which will be of enormous benefit to the college.
We also know that as youth, those who are propagating violence and terrorism are ready to use us. From today, we have learned and we will practice. We will be each other's keeper, and then we will not allow any group or any individual to use us to perpetrate violence or terrorism.
Reporting for Joy News, Rafik Salam. Wow.
The Chief Executive Officer of the Northern Developmental Authority, Sule Sambian, has assured students of the Nankpanduri Senior High School in the Northeast region that the NDA will mobilize resources to reconstruct the girls' dormitory that was ravaged by fire some months ago. Mr. Sambian appealed to the students to concentrate on their studies and allow the authorities to deal with the disaster. He said all of this when he paid a working visit to the Northeast region.
The NDA is undertaking some development projects in schools and communities in the Northeast region as part of its infrastructure for poverty eradication program, which started in 2017. The program is aimed at building infrastructure in deprived communities across northern Ghana. The NDA CEO, Sule Sambian, was at the Nankpanduri Senior High School to inspect some projects under construction and also commiserate with the students who lost their belongings following a fire disaster. He said the NDA had paid contractors working on the projects in the school.
Show you that NDA is willing to have the place fixed for you so that you can get back to your normal. You are in your final year, please forget about the loss, concentrate and then pass. When you make it in life, you'll be able to even afford Gary, isn't it? Yes. Great. So just concentrate on the learning aspect and let us also do what we can to help you renovate the place. Taken here, we have 6 classroom block, 3 classroom block, and institutional latrine, and then institutional latrine. We are going to inspect them and ensure that we put money to get work going. The truth of the matter is that a lot of these contractors have been paid, but they haven't come back to site. That's what it is. So it is not as if money hasn't been paid for the work done. Money has been paid. I can tell, I don't want to mention the name of the contractor. I'm keeping the list here. Money has been paid, but they haven't come back to site. So we have an option of either terminating their projects or calling them back to come and do the job. So be rest assured that everything will be done to ensure normality is restored here for schoolwork to go on. Thank you.
The district chief executive for Bunkuru Nankpanduri, Joseph Luknak, said government has honored requests the chief of the area had asked from government, citing the school bus, a dormitory block, among others.
We put up a boys' dormitory, 120 capacity, and we're able to bring His Excellency President Nana Akufo-Addo to come on commission. And the day of commissioning, Nankpanduri chief made a plea. He asked for 3 things that President could do for him. He said the Nankpanduri Senior High need a school bus. Was the bus delivered before the elections? Yes. He said he wanted the Nankpanduri Presbyterian Senior High to be absorbed by government. Is it absorbed? Yes. And another thing was to get a multi-purpose dining hall. You can see that is currently ongoing. Can you see it? Yes. So very soon, Gate Fund is going to pay the contractor to come and continue with the work. But there are some JARAs that came around. You are all aware. The JARA has to do with the 6-unit classroom block, the 3-unit classroom block, the institutional latrine that we are talking about. But more are coming. As they've mentioned, the day will come back to hand over this facility to you. You will see that your classroom blocks is roofed and plastering and other things are ongoing. You see, and the dining hall, very soon, when they come back and they roof and finish, I will come and join you and we'll have all night entertainment.
The team paid courtesy calls on the Nankpanduri, Bimbago, Najo, Nanil, and Angelic chiefs in the area.
In our next story, the Director General of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, Professor Amin Al-Hassan, is questioning why a broadcasting network run by the police service is not under the direct supervision of the National Media Commission. According to him, since the police is funded by the state, operating a television station could be regarded as a state broadcaster. Now, speaking on the 5th edition of the Joy Change Speakers Series, Professor Al-Hassan raised concerns over how the station was authorized to broadcast without recourse to the National Media Commission.
We are all aware. If you are not aware, please take your remote control and scan your TV channels. You come across what we call police TV. Let's step back and go back to the Constitution and go back to the laws and go back to the reasoning behind certain Supreme Court decisions and extract what is a state broadcaster. It is simply an institution that was founded with state resources and is funded with state resources. That is how you can understand. And when you say this today, every Ghanaian calls, oh, that is GBC, Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. But if the Ghana Police Service, for example, which depends on 100% state funds to operate, uses part of the allocated state resources to start a television station, and it starts to typically act as if it is in the business of broadcast journalism. I've seen some content on their channel where a policeman in dress with police uniform with a camera and a mic doing vox pop in communities on the channel, literally mean what we would define as broadcast journalists. Should we then call the police TV station a state broadcaster? If so, why is it not under the direct supervision of the National Media Commission? How could it be licensed or rather better still, authorized to broadcast without recourse to the National Media Commission?
Now, in our next story, the President of the Republic of Zambia, His Excellency Hakainde Hichilema, is urging African leaders to back their talk with action and necessary funding. He believes Africa can become economically independent if leaders were to turn their speeches into action. The president was speaking during a visit to Zoom Lion Ghana's Accra compost and recycling plant as part of his state visit to Ghana. There is more in this report.
President Hakainde Hichilema was in Ghana for a 3-day state visit upon the invitation of his counterpart, Nana Akufo-Addo, to enhance bilateral relations between the two countries. The visit to the Accra compost plant was to see at first hand how the private sector is helping solve the waste management problem in Ghana and how that can be replicated in Zambia through collaborations. The president, after touring the Accra compost plant, said he was impressed with the kind of investment done by the private sector. He believes Africans must invest in technology to solve their problems.
We want to appreciate your innovative, ingenious mind around this menace called West. So I do believe, since you're already in other countries, I don't have to emphasize the point. We Africans must learn to work together. G to G, government to government, business, people to people. This encouragement I want to indicate to Executive Chairman will become more visible amongst the current crop of leaders on the continent. A number of us are resolved that we must look out to each other for each other as we push the developmental agenda.
He urged African leaders to invest in priority areas.
Our continent for a long time was not allocating resources, alongside its own priorities. So there was, probably connected to the first question, there was a lot of intent talked about, desires talked about, but not matching those desires with the resource envelope. If you followed our conversation in Paris last week, we did discuss, and for me what was pleasing that a lot of leaders in the meeting there to look at the reform of the global financial architecture agreed that time has come to allocate decent resources to the priorities of Africa, development, jobs. You will see a little bit more convergence, a little bit more concerted effort amongst leaders. Instead of talking politics every time we meet, we must talk economy, investment, trade, joint ventures.
The group chairman of the Jospon Group, Dr. Joseph Siao Ejapon, said 62% of waste generated in Africa is organic and can be recycled with the necessary investments in technology.
Over the world, climate change and all the issues that are going on is turning the waste not as a waste, but a waste to a resource. Now, Global Outlook talks about 2.1 billion waste generated worldwide. Africa, our nature of food eating and habits and other things. In Africa, everybody eats corn. Everybody eats, everybody eats. So the nature of the food that we eat, this is the characteristics. 62% is organic. Plastics is 14% and other things. There are so many, Your Excellency, there are so many thoughts about turning the waste to gas, turning the waste to power, waste to energy and other things. The philosophy that is not good for Africa is that our waste is a wet waste. It's a sandy waste. And so by these characteristics of 62%, you focus on organic treatment.
The Accra Compost and Recycling Plant, ARCUP, is an integrated waste processing and recycling company that receives and processes waste into plastic pellet and organic manure for agronomic purposes. The plant processes over 2,400 tons of waste whilst producing over 240 tons of compost daily. For Joy News, Prince Kwame Kudoge's report read to you.
And that's the note on which we cap off the news. But stay with us shortly. Suleimana Brahima, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa, is our guest for the news review. Well, thank you for staying. Boy, are we glad to have you as we get into the newspaper review. It's 40 minutes off the top of the hour. In some 30 minutes, we'll be done with this. And we're hosting Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa, Suleimana Brahima. Mr. Brahima, very good morning to you, sir.
Morning, Ben. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, it's really good to have you. But to kickstart the conversation, over the weekend, I watched you together with Madam Ama and others deliberate very interestingly on the media space and everything happening here. One thing that struck me, the fact that 87% of our media houses are owned by just about 4 conglomerates, so to speak, and we know them. We don't even need to do overkill or belabor the point. I want to know what your thinking is on that and how it impacts or shapes the media landscape in Ghana. And I know that elsewhere, there are such big entities as well that are dominant, the BBC, the CNN, Al Jazeera, among others. That's the first point. And the second point, I'd like to find out from you, with your 30 years plus or so in this space, what would you say is Ghana's foremost problem when it comes to the media landscape?
So, first of all, in terms of the dominance of the conglomerates that you talked about, in terms of the 87%, it is in relation to audience share,
right?
And not necessarily the number.
The number of right. Thanks for that correction.
Exactly. So, if you take every 100 people who are media audiences or listeners of readers or viewers of media outlets, what happens is that you would have about 80%, 8 out of the 10 being listeners or viewers or readers of platforms that belong to these 4 conglomerates. And we know them, the multimedia, the Despite Group, the other 2 that we know about. And so the challenge with that is that we would be talking about pluralism, because you go across the country and you find at least radio stations in almost every district across the country. So if you go to Garu, you would have Quality FM there. You go to Trifo Etimokwa, you have Arise FM. You go to Enchi and you have Tricky FM. You go to Seville, also Liberty FM. You come to Asante Achim areas and you have the Kingdom FMs and so on and so forth. So across the country, you would find a radio station everywhere. But still, if you go to these communities, they are in one way or the other consuming, content from these same 4 platforms. And therefore, in terms of the diversity that we're talking about, you have pluralism, but you don't have diversity of content. And that is really the problem. And that then relates to what you asked about, what I consider to be the biggest issue in terms of the media space. And at this stage, I would say that it is the question of regulation. Yes, there are other issues like threats, abuses, attacks against journalists, questions about media sustainability, challenges that media houses are going through in terms of paying salaries and being able to deliver the content that they must deliver, which are economic issues. There are issues of media capture by states, by corporates. There are issues of cognitive capture in terms of the minds of those practitioners in the media space. There's repression and all of that. But the one fundamental thing that we need to deal with in order to tackle all these would be the regulatory lacuna that we have at this moment. We have about 117 television channels on air right now. We have 513 radio stations on air as at the end of 2022. And now we have internet-based broadcast services. So you have somebody sitting in the US or UK and broadcasting into Ghana. In fact, basically dealing with Ghanaian issues, interviewing people in Ghana and, dealing with matters that are within the Ghanaian socio-political spaces.
And you would also have, just because you brought this up, you would also have the Ghana Webs, and I can,
exactly.
which is operated elsewhere. I mean, it took a long time before I found out they were based in, is it the Netherlands also?
Yes.
But look at their footprint in Ghana.
Exactly. And these are for the Ghana Web, for example, it's an aggregator. Basically, nowadays, I see they also produce their own content, but
yes.
Beyond their own content, what they do is also to take content from other platforms. And because, again, we don't have anything around strong copyright regulations when it comes to media and what you can take from another platform and what you cannot take, you see others profiteering from, the labor of other journalists. And basically, sometimes people also feel, we are happy that our content is being taken. You have radio stations and television stations reviewing newspapers extensively, in fact, cover to cover, reading word for word. And then you ask yourself, why would any listener who has already listened to this go and buy the same newspaper to read? Of course, newspaper review is done everywhere, but we do it as we are doing it here, in terms of, okay, this is what the subject matter is, what are the perspectives? But you listen to other platforms and it is reading the entire article from cover to cover, or almost every content is shared. So people often ask me, so if I'm offended, what do I do? Then I say, you can go to the NMC, or ultimately you can decide to go to court. People may not have the resources of going to court, but the NMC may not also give them satisfaction, because we have a situation where the NMC would say that, look, somebody should retract and apologize for a certain content. And the next day, that same media outlet would actually be castigating the NMC for one reason or the other. So here's a commission that has no powers to sanction airing or offending media outlets and journalists. And this is how we've brought ourselves, in terms of regulation within the media space. The system kept growing, numbers were rising, complexities out of the internet, and now, mobile phones and all of that, enabling fake news, misinformation, disinformation. And yet, we are still stuck to the 1993 pieces of legislation, which was basically about enabling the ecosystem, because we had been in a period of almost 10 years of repression under PNDC rule, criminal libel law, no access to information law, and so on. And yet we've transitioned this for 30 years now, and we are still stuck with those laws, which have become quite ineffective. So I would say that the biggest challenge for me now is the question of regulation.
Thank you for those initial thoughts. Of course, this segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. I have to give them their props. They're offering you free prostate screening, free female fertility screening. Locate them here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi Kronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's also Takrady Anaji State Tema Community 22, Tichiman Hanswa and Esiamanzima. Reach them on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease, but only the start of getting into the newspapers. So, Suleimana, let's quickly do this. We've seen the Zambian president in town. That's one of the major stories in the Daily Graphic. Dr. Joseph Siao left the executive chairman of the Jospon Group. If you can see the image, of course, showing some plastic waste to Hakainde Hichilema, the Zambian president. Government committed to protecting intellectual property, that's according to the AG. And a lot of people in recent times have taken on the AG for different matters. But in this instance, this is what he's saying. Police arrest chief for destroying 33,000 rubber trees. And there's also NHIS hits 17.2 million membership, highest since its inception. On the back page, stop female discrimination in mining. WIM, that is Women in Mining Ghana president, appeals to government, and Hobankwe floodwaters recede. That it was a disastrous situation over the weekend as those floodwaters actually hit Hobankwe. They are receding now, but they left in their wake massive destruction. And that intermittent downpour started around 3 p.m. and ended at about 7 p.m., destroying shops, many houses, and rendering them uninhabitable and displacing several scores of people. So that's something that eventually I would like you to hit at. Sometimes we think flooding is all restricted to Accra. Other parts of the country are hard hit as well. But some good news. The National Health Insurance Scheme hit an active membership of 17.2 million by the end of 2022, representing approximately 55% of the population. The figure is the highest membership of the scheme at any particular period. At a news conference in Accra last Friday, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Health Insurance Authority, Dr. Bernard Okoboy, said despite the high subscription, the NHIA had paid more than 471 million Ghana cedis to its 4,500 credentialed healthcare providers across the country. But of course, there are those who say there are issues with using the Ghana card in different hospital facilities and that cash and carry is becoming a thing again. Let me just add the story from page 16, or maybe those two stories from page 16, and have you reflect on them. So the police have arrested an Odikro of Jabenkrom and 2 others for destroying more than 33,000 mature rubber trees on a plantation belonging to the Ghana Rubber Estate Limited in the Ahanta West municipality in the Western region. The destruction is estimated to cost the company 95,000 euros, equivalent to 1.14 million Ghana cedis. Now, police said the action of the Odikro, identified as Nanejako, was allegedly informed by his desire to reclaim part of government land allocated to the GREL for rubber plantations, rezone it and sell it to a private individual for redevelopment or for development. And then there is the Zambian president. We brought that in the news, but just to re-echo, the president of Zambia, Hakainde Hichilema, has urged African states to deploy trade and other partnerships as benchmarks for collaboration to move the continent forward. We know, of course, that he was inspecting Zoom Lion's compost site. So, quick stories for your reflection. Flooding in Ho. There's also the police arresting this chief. NHIS hitting 17.2 million and partnerships needed by African states. What are your thoughts, Suleimana?
Well, the issue of flooding, yesterday, right. It started raining in different parts of Accra, and within matters of a few hours, we had videos circulating showing how different parts of the city had gotten flooded.
Yeah.
Because of visibility, because of media issues, we tend to often see these things in Accra. But as you rightly said, there are different parts of the country that also suffer this same phenomenon. And I believe that as a country, we need to begin to be very, very serious about these issues. There are issues related to climate change, but there are also issues related to how we ourselves are destroying our environment and how we plan our built areas. Because in many parts across the country now, you would have people constructing either shops or houses or other facilities in waterways. And it's not just in Accra. The other day, I had a chief from one of the communities in Western North lamenting how he's been struggling to deal with people who are putting up structures on waterways and in places that, growing up were just left as, places where in case of flooding, the water can accumulate and will be safe for the people. And so, again, we should move from the rhetoric and deal with this issue to prevent any future catastrophe. These things happen, maybe people don't die, but if it were the case that, 10 people dead or 20 people dead as a result of flooding, then you would have government people come out, make all manner of fanciful statements. You would have the ministry responsible, come up with big statements and promises and all of that, and yet the problem will persist. I think it is important that our leaders and all of us begin to act in ways that would save us and prevent future catastrophes from happening.
Right.
President GRNMA in town, he's somebody that I admire right from the beginning because, he was striking the right chords in terms of his speeches. And I believe he is the person who, during his first year or so, traveled to the UN General Assembly with just about 3 or so officials and decided to go commercial. Rather than the usual thing of having a delegation of 40, 50 by African governments to these events. I hope and believe that he is not changed, and I hope it was not just for the applause, but he would act the right way so that we would at least have an example of an African country that is recovering so strongly and so fast. We would want to caution that all that glitters is not gold. And so even as he is trying to strike partnerships, it is important that he is very, very cautious and engaged with local actors so that he can be advised on some of the steps that can be taken. Otherwise, I believe that, yes, forging partnership in Africa is the way to go. NHIS, the headline and the numbers looks revealing. For me, what is important is how is it working? It is easy to say that we've enrolled this number of people. By the legislation, all of us are supposed to be NHIS subscribers. We all pay at the end of the month from our SNIT contributions. Every worker is supposed to be a subscriber of the NHIS. But I don't recall in my maybe the last 10 years or so, any time I've gone somewhere to say that I'm using the NHIS system, because the frustration is just too much. We have parents, we have relatives out there in various districts across the country who will tell you, who would ask you for money for health issues, and then you ask them, but why don't you have the NHIS card? And they will tell you, is either the clinic or the facility here would not accept it, or even if they would accept, what you go through is a problem. Right. It's just like talking about the number of schools we have built, the number of kids in school, and what we often avoid is how are the schools doing? How well are our kids doing in the education sector? And so, yes, the numbers are good, but we need to interrogate the quality and the delivery. I think those are the issues that were raised, except if I'm missing something.
Those were the issues that were raised. Just a quick one on page 17. It's about the big issue of monetization of our politics. A number of people share their views. I'm just picking that of my own friend, Professor Kobi Mensah, lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. And he says, the increasing rate of competition in our elections has resulted in an unholy welcome of monetization in Ghana. Monetization in its barest form is when politicians dole out cash of any amount to prospective voters. But it goes on and on. You can check out the details from there. I got an interesting message coming through. Humphrey Asibi Asibi, I should say, Humphrey Asibi says, honestly, I didn't know reading the newspapers cover to cover was inappropriate. I believe ignorance is partly to blame. That's an interesting one he puts there, that I suspect this person may be a media person or may have some entity where he does a review. But of course, Humphrey, if you want to, you see what we're doing here, touching and going on a number of issues. If you want to review everything in here, there will be nothing left for the newspaper to sell. So that is the point there. Let's quickly get into the daily guide, and you can add your thoughts on what Professor Mensah says, if you have any. It says, I am Kufuor's seed, nurtured by Nana. That is according to Dr. Bawumia. AG Waipo boss hold talks in Geneva, and the minister exposes Ablakwa's fallacious contract, or in quote, fallacy contract. But in there too, when you go to page 3, mausoleum renovation, there's a cartoon there of a cherub-like, angelic Dr. Kwame Nkrumah shaking hands with Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and saying, Aiko why? And of course, we cannot stop celebrating the president for the Kwame Nkrumah mausoleum. I always say there's a lot to be done, but at least it starts somewhere. And that renovation is a feather in the president's cap. Now, Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia has compared himself to a fertile seed that former President John Agyekum Kufuor identified and planted because of its ability to blossom, and which was nurtured by President Nana Akufo-Addo. In a public remark on his father-son connection with the former president, that is Kufuor, Dr. Bawumia detailed he was found given crucial duties throughout Kufuor's government and eventually became President Akufo-Addo's running mate in 2008. That is what he is saying. But Minister exposes Ablakwa's fallacy. And Minister of Communications and Digitalization, Owusu Ekufo, has shut down a fantasy fallacy, sometimes our choice of words, a fantasy fallacy of a $48 million contract allegedly signed by her for the execution of a rural telephony project by Ascent Digital Solutions. Now, the NDC Member of Parliament for North Tongue, Samuel Kujetu Ablakwa, alleged the minister had awarded a, quote, juicy contract cloaked in secret to a supposed, quote, Nigerian cabal. In a social media post, Ablakwa claimed that the commercial agreement for the $155 million rural telephony project, which Parliament approved on March 31, 2020, could only be executed by Huawei Technologies Company Limited and the China National Technical Import and Export Corporation. But this one says, the minister in response, I am still waiting for the $48 million contract I'm supposed to have signed without PPA approval. That hasn't been produced yet. Ablakwa is now jumping from pillar to post. I won't dignify ignorant rants with a response. I have work to do, Ursula wrote in a response to the accusation. This has become a bit of a social media battle. Quick thoughts on these?
Well, I've been following the issue about the said or alleged contract that was awarded without PPA approval. I think that the problem of our media is sometimes reflected in how the Daily Guide has presented this particular story when it says the minister has exposed blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then that same story, you don't find the same newspaper talking to, let's say, Ablakwa. Because Ablakwa says this, the minister says that, but what is the truth? That is what people want, and not the partisan angles with which we report. Because it appears that the newspaper has concluded that it's done its own investigations, and what the minister has said is the truth, and what Okujetu Ablakwa said is false. But I don't think we've gotten to that point, because the right thing to have been to do would have been for journalists to engage with the minister. This is the accusation coming from the member of parliament. And what are the explanations on your side? Go back to Honorable Okujetu Ablakwa and then say, well, you made this claim. The minister says this. Where is the evidence? Then you'll be able to draw a conclusion that will be beneficial to the readers and audience. But to just jump, the usual partisan thing in defense of the minister, I don't think that is good enough.
The only person I see them interacting with here is Ato Kwamina Forson, who is the MPP's deputy director of IT. And so I wholly agree with you. I mean, I've said time without number, especially with our newspapers. It's same with the broadcast media sometimes, some of the broadcast media. I mean, Some of them are clearly tainted. It also boils down to the issue of ownership of media entities by those who are politically exposed or who are politicians themselves. That is also part of the problem, because I've said time and again, you can pick some newspapers, same issue, one issue, and they'll look at it from clearly different angles based on clearly partisan lines. And so, yeah, I mean...
absolutely. And I think that one of the most important things that we need to do, people like us need to do, is to begin to really highlight the issue of ownership so that people will not be deceived. So, for example, the Daily Guide, edited by my very good friend, a fantastic editor, Fortune Alimi. But we know that the Daily Guide is owned by Honorable Fred Blay and the wife. Honorable Fred Blay, until recently, was the chairman of the MPP. The wife, Madame Gina Blay, is currently Ghana's ambassador to Germany. And so you would say that, well, the paper has a job to do. And so when readers know it this way, then they would understand, oh, okay, that is why this story is being treated this way or that way. And so going forward, we need to highlight the issue of ownership so that in terms of the media literacy that people are clamoring for, things will be much more clearer.
Yeah,
now,
and we should also echo that is saying for the other side as well, the NDC, where sometimes you'll see, of course, again, ownership, and you'll see a certain rhetoric almost always where you know that because the ownership is aligned towards the opposition, they are also putting out information in a certain way. So it strikes both ways.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I've made it clear that, of course, if you take, I mean, it's perhaps not the best to use another platform to be talking about others, but Google, Power FM, you know, those days, Munti FM and so on and so forth, Oman FM. These are the very partisan stations that people should know and understand why certain issues will be treated in what ways.
Right.
Money in politics, very sad. The other day, I was reading about delegates from a particular constituency in Greater Accra saying they are angry with Alan Chermantain because, he only gave them 100 cedis and the vice president was given 300, whether that is true or not. But these are delegates speaking. And I was telling myself, for this MPP upcoming general process to elect a flag bearer, you have, for every polling station, about 5 delegates. So if for a constituency you have even 20 polling stations, you are talking about 100 people, and each of them taking 100 cedis and complaining that this is too small, and that claiming that somebody paid them 300. We heard the issues from Kumewu to Asin North and how much money was being used by both parties. Of course, at all times, the incumbents may have the capacity to give more, but it doesn't mean that the opposition doesn't give. The opposition does the same thing, literally. And so it's a big issue, and I don't know how we overcome it. There have been campaigns about money in politics. Perhaps we have to continue the campaigns and perhaps make it more aggressively. But otherwise, that is the basis of corruption.
All right.
If people win elections on the back of monies they paid, when they get to power, they certainly would have to have a way of recouping that money.
Okay.
And that is our problem. And we all need to deal with it. The media perhaps need to do more investigations into the issues of money in politics.
You know, just to the next batch of stories I'm going to run by you, about 3 of them, that's how we'll cap off the conversation. This one doesn't, this is just a touch and go though. But sometimes I ask myself, you see the 300 CDs, 100 CDs and whatever. If you look at the numbers involved sometimes, you ask yourself, where are our politicians getting all this money from? Sometimes you look at how much someone has bussed people and all of that and how much it would cost and how much they are doling out. We saw it recently and you ask yourself, how are they able to come by such sums of money? Only God knows.
No, but that for me is not surprising. It is through the looting from the public purse.
It goes down. I know people who serve, at, let me say it, the presidency, general staff serving in this person's office, that person's office. I don't want to mention. You see these people, ordinary Joes, ordinary Janes, that knock a few, all of a sudden they are putting up houses, 2 houses, 3 houses. People who are less than 40, you ask yourself, what is going on? How are people able to do this when the ordinary man on the street would toil for 40 years, go on pension, and have next to zilch? It's crazy.
Well, I think it's not a secret. There's a lot of looting from the public purse, and indeed, for maybe 99.9% of people who clamor for power, who do all these, political engagement, it's all about opportunities to be able to make money.
All right.
And we are not talking about making money genuinely. It's more about making money through looting from the state press, through inflated contracts, through deals here and there. And of course, we are where we are because of these things. I'm just hoping that one day we would get a leader who says enough is enough.
Hopefully.
Yes, people may have paid to get me elected, but it is time to really pause and build this country that has so much potential, that is so much endowed, and that is so much.
Suleimana, we have just about a minute to go. I just wanted to highlight this. Pope Francis names, I'm Catholic and proudly so. So Pope Francis names 21 new cardinals from across the world. And when choosing who to appoint as cardinal, Francis has mostly focused on promoting clergy from developing nations, contrasting his predecessors whose choices were largely Eurocentric. I just wanted to highlight that. It's a good bit. That's also in the Daily Guide newspaper. But to wrap the conversation, Alan has served MPP longer than his competitors. Mr. Richard Nyama, deputy spokesperson for the MPP presidential candidate hopeful, Mr. Alan John Kwejo Cherbating, says Alan's "it is my turn to lead MPP" is justifiable by his various significant contributions to the party. There are details on page 11 of the Finder newspaper. Of course, recently that is also to take a stab back at the vice president who said when in the election petition following the 2008 election, or was it 2008 election, when those matters came up, and there was talk about the party not winning and all of that. He was the one who was in the box. He was the one who was there. And so that was that. So any quick reflections on those stories? And there's also Ghana Beyond Gold. Let me just add this. Ghana Beyond Gold, I found it very interesting. The author is basically saying we should look beyond gold and look at salt and lithium. Quick thoughts?
Well, the MPP internal politics is getting very, very interesting. Of course, everyone trying to flag what they think would push them far. Alan's camp trying to play the issue about when he joined the party and what he had done, the Young Executives Forums, contributions, and all of that. And of course, Dr. Baumia talking about, yes, I may not have been in this as long as you have been, but my short stay has produced or has gotten me to do certain things that are extraordinary in terms of representation of the party in court and so on and so forth. Well, that's internally to the MPP and for them to decide. Ghana Beyond Gold and
lithium.
We've had Beyond Aid for some time now. There's a lot to do, and I fully agree. We are actually now looking so much into the mining sector, which is fine, but it's all about how we manage the sector in ways that will be beneficial to the people of Ghana and to the ordinary people out there. And so, yes, we need to look at how we diversify our sources of revenue as a country. And of course, lithium is a big thing around the world now. And I hear we have a lot of deposits in the central region. And again, how we exploit those resources will be the issues that we need to look at.
Mr. Brima, thank you so much for joining the conversation. I just had to remind myself that I was referencing the 2012 election petition, not 2008, when Tain was the crucial decider. But thank you so much for your time, and we wish you the best of the day, sir. Keep being what you are for Mother Ghana.
Thank you so much. Have a great week.
And that is Suleimana Brima, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. As we get into sports now, this segment brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And they are saying it's the end to chronic disease. But guess what? If you have any prostate issues, or even if you don't, get yourself checked for free at Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. If you're a woman, fertility issues, go to Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They are here in Accra at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard. Kumasi, Kronoma here behind the Angel Educational Complex. Takrady Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanso and Esiama Nzama. Their call lines, and you should give them a call, 0244-867-068 or 0274-234-321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, bringing us to the end of the news review. Sports is up next.
Thank you for staying with us on the AM show. Hello, I'm Gary L. Smith with the sports. And today, the 29th Ordinary Congress of the Ghana Football Association will be coming off in Kumasi. The important event will be held at the Great Hall of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. All members of Congress have confirmed their participation and sent their delegates for a successful event. That is the hope. Joining me on phone is Immortal Ejakwa Champong, who is currently at the venue for more. He's with sister station Asempa FM. Immortal, good morning.
Good morning, Gary.
Yes. How are things going this morning there?
Well, everything is set for the 29th Ghana Football Association Ordinary Congress. And as you said, the Great Hall of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, members of the Football Association, talking about Congress members, are ready for today's occasion. And I might say, when you enter the auditorium, you could see that everything is set for the occasion. And just a few minutes ago, I saw the Security Committee of Ghana Football Association. Mr. Ansan was here, and then Julius Emuna. He's also here with our security officers. They came to come and patrol the auditorium, and then they were putting security checks in place for the Ordinary Congress.
Right. What is expected to be on the agenda today? What are some of the key points we should expect to be talked about today at the Congress, Immortal?
Well, when you look through the convo of the 29th Ordinary Congress session, these are the activities we may witness over here. So the first agenda is our opening prayer, and then the second agenda, roll call. We will have a declaration that Congress has been conveyed and then composed in compliance with the status. From that, we move to the fourth one, that is approval of the agenda, and then an address by the President of the Ghana Football Association, appointment of our members to check the minutes, and then again, appointment of the scrutiny and suspension of a member. So when you talk about suspension of member, we want to know maybe whether Ashgood, yes, it's directly, opposed to Ashgood. So that's the eighth one, the combo. And then the ninth one is the approval of the minutes of the preceding Congress and activity report, which will be like containing the activity since the last Congress by the General Secretary. And then a presentation by the Ghana Premier League Limited Implementation Committee. Apart from that, we may also witness approval of the GSA election nomination fee. Yes. So these are one of the talking points. Just few minutes ago, just few days ago, Ghana Football Association, come out with a document for the Congress that if you want to participate in the election, you need to pay about 50,000 Ghana cedis. So they will look at all this and other fees for the RSA, and then if you want to be executive member. So they will also look at the fee for the election, nomination for the election. And then presentation of the consolidated and then review balance sheet and profits. So review balance sheet, profits, and then loss statements. So they look at the auditing aspect in terms of Ghana Football Association, their accounts. And 15 on the agenda is approval of the work program and budget for the coming year. So they will revise the budget for 2023 and 2024 financial year. So So it goes on until they will close. That will be the 18th on the agenda. So at the moment, we are waiting for the members of the Congress. Apart from Mr. Do Nyakron, who is the administrator for Ghana League Clubs Association, and the security committee, none of the members are here talking about clubs from the women football aspect, women leagues, and then Division 1 and IFS and co. They are yet to arrive over here. I'm sure by 8, all of them may be coming one after the other.
Sure. Thank you. And obviously, one of the key issues we should be looking out for is the GFA election, because there's been a lot of debate about whether this is where the GFA is mandated by the Constitution to let us know when the dates for the elections will be coming off. And so we'll see how that one plays out. Immortal Ejakwa Champion is with us in Pi FM, and he's in Kumasi at the Great Hall to bring us updates on today's ordinary Congress as well. One of the things at the Congress that will be talked about, obviously, is the year under review, like Immortal said, and they'll definitely touch on the successes or the failures of the various national teams. The last one of interest is the Under-23 Africa Cup of Nations, where Ghana was humiliated and was thrown out in Morocco. That tournament has now ended. Morocco, the host nation, have won. They beat Egypt in extra time to win once again. Morocco host and win. They've made it to the semi-final of the World Cup. In the women's football, they are also flying, and now they've added this trophy to their increasingly heavy cabinet as well. Congratulations to them. Here in Ghana, the second edition of the Cheetah Cup tournament is set to come out from the 14th to the 20th of August in Senya Breku. Now 16 teams from 7 African countries will compete. Mr. Abdul Hayate is the organizer, and he believes the tournament will help unearth talents like the late Christian Achu.
Come the 14th to the 20th of August to show us what they are actually made up of. I'm not going to give a long speech. Emotional again, because this idea of actually coming up with a tournament of this nature also came from the prospects of the late Christian Achu. I struggled so hard to get his passports, his visas, to get him into Porto in Portugal. And then he represented FC Porto in the FIFA Youth Tournament in Zurich. And in that tournament, Christian came out as the best player of the tournament. So he actually emerged from that tournament to be a star. That is why we have the motto, Emerging Star. We believe from what we actually saw Christian doing, we are actually going to get a lot of young talents who are going to emerge from this tournament to become stars. Again, I've actually seen so many tournaments in Africa and in Ghana. I've been invited, I'm a scout, I've been invited to so many tournaments. And then some of these tournaments, when you go, the standard is low, some are very high. And I decided to come up with this tournament to actually give Ghana the opportunity to be able to create a tournament that will bring other countries from Africa and even from around the world to Ghana to participate in a tournament. So this tournament is not for Cheetah Football Club, but this tournament is basically for the people of Ghana. And I will actually plead with every Ghanaian to help for us to make this tournament a great one. I have a motto, and the motto is the impossible is possible. I believe impossible is nothing. If you want to do anything, your mind set. If you believe that it is possible, you will do it. And we are going to design, we're going to build a world-class tournament in Cheetah Cup for the people of Ghana. I want to actually, first of all, congratulate every team that have made it to this draw, and then, as Madam said, let the best team won a 2023 edition of the Cheetah Cup.
And yesterday in Turkey, Hatayspor, that's Christian Achu's, the late Christian Achu's club, played their first game in 5 months. And that match was a friendly against Hull City. The proceeds of that cup game, were given to the victims of the earthquake in the team. And we'll be bringing you pictures of that pretty shortly. In tennis, reigning Wimbledon champion Novak Djokovic needs just one set to reach the quarterfinals after his thrilling match with Hubert Hurkacz could not be completed in time on Sunday night. The match was suspended following the curfew and will continue later today. There's a curfew in that part of London as well. In the women's category, Iga Swiatek survived a scare to beat Belinda Bencic, advancing to the quarterfinals. That's it for the sports, and we'll be bringing you more on the GFA Congress, which is really the biggest story coming out of Ghana today, and some of the things that will be talked about there. I'm Gary Al Smith. You can get more on myjoyonline.com. Please stay with us across our socials for more updates.
Welcome back on the AM show. We get into our first conversation, which has to do with the exodus of our health professionals. Now, it has moved from worrying to critical. And this morning, we're going to dissect the different issues in the value chain and even go to the regions to interact with some of our reporters there, find out, pinpoint what is happening on the ground. But before I announce my guests, like you see behind me, we're going to perform some sort of analysis of the trajectory and how we've ended up here. So come with me. Now, looking at the Human Flight and Brain Drain Index, Ghana ranks 16th out of 53 countries in Africa for human flight and brain drain as of the 30th of, placing the 30th of 177 globally. And that is a pretty high rank, 16th in Africa, 30th globally. You look at the dynamics in 2015, a score of 7.6, 2016, 7.9, a high in 2017 of 8.2 out of a 10. Now, 8.2, or 8.1, I should say, in 2018. And then the numbers have dwindled in 2022. But the point to be made is that this number is still really high. On a scale of 10, that means that more than 2 out of every 3 to 4 out of 2, 2 of them or more actually take flight. That is the situation we're facing there. If you look at it, just about 3 out of 4 in that score. But let's go to the next slide. It will explain further. When you look at the brain drain index, Ghana comparatively with other countries, okay? You look at Burkina Faso, 7.1, tied with us. Togo, 6.8, Nigeria, 6.6, and it's all on a scale of 10. Cote d'Ivoire, just over 6, so 6.1. Look at Ghana, 7.1. So this has become a crucial matter that we have to look at. And if you look at the main reasons for African youth migration, it begins to get you thinking about why some of our nurses are leaving. On Ghana Connect on 99.7 FM, last Friday, we heard about some of them. In fact, a nurse spoke who explained some of the situations. Someone who has just finished national service wants to leave. And she herself, who was speaking, admitted that she would want to leave. The question is why? Now look, in terms of the economic situation, a whopping 44% of them say they want to leave because the economy is simply not economizing, so to speak, for them. So 44%. Education, 41%. But we know that even when it comes to these statistics, some of those who often go for education, I have friends who are in the UK, US now, on the back of education, but they will also admit to me that they are also there because of the economic opportunities. So I get the feeling a lot of those here still will feed into this if they were being very honest. New experiences, 25%. Those who say it is because of corruption-related issues, 18%. For political reasons, 12%. Personal freedom, they don't want to be here, 9%. Family reunion, 9%, and this is a very valid reason. Security, 9%, also a very valid reason. And religion, 7%. Now, if you look at the nurses leaving the country in numbers per the World Health Organization and what we ought to be looking at as a country, Ghana is among 55 countries in the world facing a serious shortage of health workers. Mind you, we rank in the top 30 globally. We are 30th globally, so that is a huge concern. The UK red-listed Ghana for health workers recruitment in April 2023, but now there have been proposals about, for example, giving money to governments like ours for every person they take. But is that sustainable? That's the question. Now, in 2022, more than 1,200 Ghanaian nurses joined the UK's nursing register. So, Ghana 4, that is the picture. Now, if you look at the numbers, this reminds you of something from our science books way back when, the eye and how it operates. But this is being realistic. Nurses per 1,000 Ghanaians. Now, the number of nurses, 4 out of the number of patients, 1,000. So already, there was a point when, per UN data, we had quite some leeway in terms of the numbers. But now, we have 4 nurses to 1,000 patients. If the nurses keep going, we all know what that dynamic would mean. Now, if you look at Dr. Anthony Nsiasare, presidential advisor on health, and what he's been saying, he says, doctors, for example, don't just go out there to go and work because of money. Every young doctor whom I have been, which I have been one of them, wants to be a specialist. Okay. So that is what he says, and that is the tale of the tape. Now, if you look at this final slide, professional nurses leaving the country, according to the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kumagwaji, he has also said, we're having a lot of professional nurses leaving the country for Europe and other parts of the world. They are taking mainly the professional nurses, and so there is the need to beef up professional nurses across the country. So there is the admission that this is happening. But the problem is not what we need. What we need to know is the solution. I'd like you to visualize, watch this scenario we're going to paint up next about brain drain, and right after that, I'll be introducing the guests for this conversation.
The 1993 year group of the University of Ghana, celebrating their 30th anniversary of completing school, has organized a seminar on the trajectory of the country socio-economically and politically. The seminar on the topic, 30 Years of Socio-Economic and Political Disequilibrium, Systemic Interventions to Salvage, highlighted the need to strategize methods for the development of the country. Dean of the Graduate School in the University of Ghana, Professor Robert Dakwose, in an interview, highlighted the need to train and equip more nurses to curb the current brain drain happening in the country.
We have serious unemployment problem today in this country, right? We have serious underemployment problem. We have serious graduate unemployment, so much so that today we have what we call the Graduate Unemployment Association or something to that effect. So if another country needs nurses and we have the capacity to train and to export, what's wrong with that? Remember, we are growing cocoa. Don't we drink cocoa? Don't we eat chocolate? But we grow cocoa and then we sell some. So why can't we build human capacity and export some? Of course, we also import capacities when we do need them, right? We have technocrats who have come to the country at various stages of our development to support us. It is not an issue of nurses are leaving and so what are we doing wrong? No. Of course, if you take the healthcare system as it is, we do not have enough nurses. But what are we doing to train more nurses? And what are we doing to retain those nurses? Okay? In that case, you are turning what you call a brain drain into a brain gain.
Economist and researcher Peter Korte, together with other panelists, advise the youth to consciously desire to gain work experience through internships and strategic workshops.
Sometimes when we look at your CVs, your job applications, they don't entice us. It doesn't tell us that you are ready for the job market. Where I schooled, you realize they come around, show you how to write your CV, they train you, they prepare you for the job market. I don't know whether our counseling and placement center does a lot of that. So we need to prepare our students ready, our young people ready for the job market. Don't do business as usual. So don't always start, you don't have work experience. Look for job placements, look for internships, etc. Start something. And wherever you work, if people start from 8, close at 5, start at 5:30, 6, start early. Don't do business as usual. Your employer will by all means notice you, and I'm sure you will get promotion.
I always say that your time, you do not have any reason not to do well. When 30 years ago when we were here, there were no mobile phones. We were using typewriter.
So that is the brain drain conversation, but today we're going hard on the health sector because now it's beginning to really bite. And like you saw the statistics, 4 nurses to 1,000 people. If the numbers keep dwindling as they are, that could be a national security risk because a health risk is a national security risk. Well, let's engage our guests this morning who joined the conversation. We have Dr. Arthur Kennedy, a physician and political activist and chair NPP Communications Committee 2008 campaign. We also have Dr. Tenkran Chum, General Secretary, Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. Then we have Umar Farouk, a UK-based Ghanaian nurse, and Dr. Franklin Esiedu Bekwe. He is Director of Public Health with the Ghana Health Service. Gentlemen, a very, very good morning to all of you, assuming all of you are in time zones where it's the morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'll start with you, Dr. Esiedu Bekwe, if you can hear me, sir. Hello, Dr. Bekwe.
Hello.
Good. It's really good to have you join the conversation. When you look at public health, I mean, we have the trajectory, how the brain drain has affected us at a high sometime in 2017, 2018, thereabouts. It's fallen a bit, but if you look at the fact that we have 4 nurses to 1,000 patients, and with the numbers dwindling, what do you make of the situation we're faced with currently?
Okay, thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers and other families. So, what I would say is the trend, if it should continue, will have a very precarious effect on health delivery. For now, I think that the deficit is more around the nurses, so we also have some doctors leaving. And what I gather from the HR perspective is that it's mainly clinical nurses for now. And it appears that we also are the most experienced. I mean, that is the worst aspect of the current situation.
And we also know that a lot of those leaving are actually specialized nurses. In fact, it's either they are specialized or they are those with the most experience. Of course, you would think that those who are contracting them abroad would go for such people. And unfortunately, if we lose them, then we lose the very foundation of our health system.
Yeah, so that is the challenge. So I think that what the ministry is doing now is try to kind of coordinate the exodus of these nurses. So, in the past, I think that the nurses have been going on their own. But now the ministry has tried to have like a coordinating point whereby it gives an idea of the data in reality as they pass. They also have a way of trying to be sure that those living have actually served their bond and things like that. So those are factors that they are trying to do to check. To be very frank, it's difficult to halt breakdown if you look at the economic factors on both sides. So what countries need to do is how do you mitigate the effect of these the drain which is occurring. I mean, this is not the first time that it occurs, but I think this one appears quite high gradient, which we need to look at. But I think that the opportunity for us is that we have a reasonable backlog of nurses and some doctors who can fill in for us in the intent. So I think that is the general situation. There's a lot of pressure all over the world to get more nurses to the Western world. And we are kind of disadvantaged of the community. But somehow we also have some nurses and doctors that we can rely on as part of the backlog.
Right. I know you're on a bit of a time leash this morning, so I just want to exhaust a few things with you before I come back for the second round. You've spoken about bonded nurses, right? Now, with these bonded nurses, I don't know, what is the situation with them? I pose this question because just this past Friday on Ghana Connect on 99.7 FM, I heard one of these nurses interact, and the point being made was, listen, people who are even doing their national service are attempting to leave. National service, and they already want to leave. And that nurse herself said she was ready to leave the country. So how is the bonding system working?
So if you are trained by the government, by the taxpayers' money, so you are kind of bonded for 5 years. So I'm looking at the regular migration. So like the one which is being coordinated by the ministry. So in that case, you need to be sure that the person going to another country is kind of clear. So that is the one. I'm not very sure what happens on the other side, whether you allow people who like better comments not clear to work for them. But what we are trying to do, the ministry is trying to do, is make sure that they coordinate the exodus of these nurses. So they kind of screen them based on your application to be sure that you actually serve your steps. It's not foolproof, but I think that's one way that could be done to make sure that we kind of regularize the departure of these nurses for the country. And I think that was said by the one Professor Koto or something like that. We have the reasonable number that if it can be regulated properly, they can have an arrangement for some to go and come back. We've had this arrangement with Barbados, and I think that it's working well. So that's how come the ministry is coming in to kind of regularize this migration of nurses to the Western world.
Do hold for me. Let me bring in Dr. Tenkran Chum, General Secretary, Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association. You rather, I beg your pardon, you rather are on a time leash. So I'll devote some time to you on this matter. When you look at the current landscape, and you can see right there in your shot, the main reasons for African youth migration, topmost, economic reasons. Then there's education, among others. For you, from where you sit, what is the foremost reason that our nurses and midwives are leaving the country?
All right. Good morning to your viewers and my senior colleagues on the call. Yes, to answer your question specifically, it's not different from the data you have. And as we often say, we need to premise this conversation on science and data. Yes, most of the push factors are economic reasons. And when you listen to the employer, what I'm not too happy about is that...
And by the employer, you're referring to the Ghana Health Service, and you're referencing...
Because they are the largest agency for the ministry. Okay. The Ministry of Health is a policy formulator. We have various agencies under it. So Ghana Health Service is the largest agency of the ministry. I reckon that there is no way we can pay competitive salaries as being paid out there. Nobody doubts that, looking at the economic of scale and our current GDPs and the rest of it. But we need to think outside the box. Dr. Asiedu Bequin made mention of the fact that this is not the first time that nurses are leaving the country in droves. Now, what did we put in place to checkmate a previous exodus? That is what we should be looking at. And let me just maybe refresh the memory of Dr. Asiedubekwe. Now, no nurse is bonded, all right? I mean, when the allowance structure was removed by the previous...
Just to confirm, sir, you're saying no nurse is bonded as of now. There's no bonding for nurses.
As I speak with you, by 2015, 2016, when the previous administration cancelled the allowances, the bonding ceased. So no nurse is bonded, unless those who came or who took the bond prior to that. But by now, they've all finished serving their bond. But that is not more important to me. What is important to me is to find a practical solution to the current exodus. And I'm saying that it can be controlled. Now, your data has shown clearly that one of the major push factors is economic. Yes, our salaries are nothing to write home about. And I have preferred these solutions to government all the time. Now look, the nurses and midwives in Ghana will want to stay in this country to serve the good people of Ghana. But what is paid to them is nothing to write home about. What can we do practically? Number one, I'm saying that in 2013, the market premium of nurses and midwives were frozen. Previously, when we were placed on the single spine, we had a component called market premium. So anytime that the salary goes up or went up, the market premium also inched up, and that will help to checkmate inflation and all that. Now, because it was frozen, the gains that we made had whittled. It has been revised for certain professional groups. I don't like comparison. What I think the government should do is to be able to raise the market premium. Just by pegging the market premium to the current basic salary will be enough, okay, to stem the attrition or the exodus, if you like.
You say one of the best solutions would be to increase the market premium, but knowing our economic situation right now, is that a practical thing to hope for?
No, I'm not even saying to increase the market premium. I'm saying that they should just tie it to the basic salary of the current salaries of nurses and midwives. Okay, they should just revise it from the 2012 basic salary, because the market premium is tied to the 2012 basic salary. And how much was the 2012 basic salary? So if they inch it up, tie it to the current basic salary or 2020 basic salary, it will certainly give a certain respite to the nurses and midwives, and they'll be prepared to stay. Again, we had what we call car waiver, and I'm sure Doctor has been around for a very long time, and he appreciates some of these things. If you were a nurse or a midwife, a doctor, and you work for a while, you could apply for that car waiver, okay, to clear any car, below an engine capacity of 2.0. That was removed by the previous administration. So anything that went for nurses and midwives in Ghana were virtually removed. So these were the things that are causing this. And let me tell you something. There is lack of recognition and respect for nurses and midwives in Ghana. Look, when we were negotiating for the single spine pay policy, we had not churned out specialist nurses and midwives yet. But we negotiated for analogous grades because the program was about to start. When the program got started, we negotiated for levels of placement of these specialist nurses and midwives. Ask me what has happened to that. Check the Director General's letter that was written in 2020. Attached was the salary levels that were supposed to be paid to these specialists. As I speak with you, they have, I don't know how they went about it without records to the unions who negotiated for these salary levels. They have downgraded the specialist nurses. The nurse specialist, midwife specialist was to start from 22H on the single spine. The senior specialist nurse midwife was placed at 23L on the basic salary, on the single spine salary structure. The consultant nurse midwife specialist was 24L. As I speak with you, they've brought them down without recourse to the unions. So these are some of the issues that are causing the problems we have on our hands. So there are practical solutions that can be put across. We have petitioned the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. We expect that as a matter of urgency, they revise it, because we are not going to tolerate them. Okay, these are negotiated levels, and a letter was duly written by the Director General of Ghana Health Service with the attached levels. And I see no reason why any human being born of a...
Hello, Dr. Chum. Well, hopefully with time, we can get Dr. Chum back on the connection. Dr. Chum, I don't know whether I saw that your connection had frozen. It had taken a bit of a hit. We'll try to get you back when you're back on. But let's also, and interesting issues he's been talking about, the market premium that was taken off, among others. Dr. Chum, if you can hear me now, I just want to find out from you, what sort of negotiations have you had with the current government? You keep saying the former government took away your market premium, the car waiver, and the rest. What has the negotiation been like with the current administration? What has the reaction been?
All right, if you check the current administration's manifesto, they stated therein that portions of it, which I have read, that they will restore the car waiver. It has not been restored. In fact, we met the vice president and we placed this before him.
When did you meet the vice president?
Oh, that was last year. No, 2021. I mean, thereabouts. I remember.
So it's been 2 years.
It's been 2 years. Nothing has been done about it. And as I've said, in respect to the placement of the specialist nurses and midwives, we have written to the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission last year, and we haven't heard anything. I prompted my president. She was away. She's back. I believe that this week.
It looks like the connectivity is going to give us problems this morning. Crucial point he is making there, but he makes the point that they had approached the vice president, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, with these issues about what this administration could do in terms of their market premiums, car waivers specifically. That's what he made mention of. It's been 2 years, because this has been since 2021. Promises were made to them, and how interesting is it? In 2021, promises were made, were not kept. Then we saw the COVID scourge and its impact. 2022, of course, by 2021, we had already been going through it. 2021, promise made, not kept. 2021, we started seeing quite a spike in, nurses going out of the country. 2022, even worse. 2023, it's become a headache. So you can see, promise made, not fulfilled, and here we are this morning having this conversation. But let me bring in, while we wait to reconnect with Dr. Chum, let me bring in Dr. Arthur Kennedy for your initial take on what is happening. You yourself are a physician. What do you see? Hello, Dr. Kennedy. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Who's on the line now?
I can hear you. I can hear you now. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Is that Dr. Chum?
Yes, please. I'm on the line. I can hear you now.
Okay, so you were telling us about the 2-year-old promise. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I made mention of the fact that we met the vice president of the land and we placed before him that we really need the market, the car waiver to be restored. All right. He made mention of the fact that, there could be policy dissonance because they have started assembling cars in Ghana. And we made it clear to him that the salary levels of nurses and midwives will not be enough to be able to purchase brand new cars, unless, of course, they have an arrangement where government was going to distribute the cars to nurses and midwives and later maybe spread the payment period for them for maybe 5 years or 7 years. That alone, we suggested that could even serve as a bond. All right. So basically, that wasn't fulfilled. And as I said, there are major issues that we raised, even in our recent negotiations. 2020, we went for negotiations. All right. We negotiated with Fair Wages and Salaries Commissions. There are other things that were supposed to be implemented, something like rural incentives. Okay, we negotiated for a rural incentive to be paid to nurses and midwives. As I speak with you, it has never been paid. Book and research allowance for those who are training these nurses and midwives that we keep talking about, that we have them in abundance, have not been paid as I speak with you. So there are major issues that borders on nursing and midwifery practice in Ghana, and as far as the remuneration is concerned. So these are some of the challenges that we have. And if we don't do anything about it, my brother, the situation will be worse. And if somebody tells you that we have a 4 to 1,000 or whatever patient ratio, I even dispute that figure.
You think it's lower?
If we talk about nurses, there are various cadres of nurses. And by standards, by international standards, the professional nurses must be more than what we call the auxiliary nurses. What we have in Ghana is the other way around. Yet we are able to boastfully talk about the fact that we have nurses in abundance. We don't have them in abundance. As I speak with you, there are several nurses at home who have not been employed. But it doesn't mean that we don't even need them or there isn't shortage. Just last week, the GRNMA president was talking about the fact that his hospital that he superintends, okay, about 30 nurses have left the hospital this year. So that should tell you that the effect is coming on and people must watch it, all right? Otherwise, we have a problem on our hands. We need to quickly look at conditions of service of nurses and midwives and listen to the leaders and begin to put in policies and programs that will retain the people.
Okay.
That's more important.
All right. Just hold for me, Dr. Chum. Hold for me. Let me bring in Dr. Arthur Kennedy. Dr. Kennedy, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great.
Good morning.
Good morning. You just heard the lamentation of Dr. Chum, of the Ghana Nurses and Midwives, the registered group, Midwives Association. And he says that there are some things we could have done to cushion the Ghanaian nurse, but we're simply not doing them. We're not working on their market premium as far as the single spine salary structure is concerned. We're not giving them car waivers. There is no incentivization, so it is very easy for them to leave. He even adds another problem. The bonding situation, which was extant when the previous administration was in power, was cancelled because of some decisions that were made. And so now the nurses we have are not bonded. What's your reaction?
My reaction is one of sympathy, but not surprise. I think these issues actually go across all healthcare fields, and actually most of my remarks I was going to say would apply to nurses as well, that doctors and nurses work together as well as other ancillary healthcare staff. But let me preface my general remarks by saying that health migration is a global phenomenon that even though it affects Africa more severely, it is even beginning to affect advanced countries. When you look at OECD countries, for example, between the decade of 2006 to 2016, the percentage of Israeli physicians working abroad rose from 10 to 14%. India has had chronic migration problems. Germany is now losing healthcare physicians to the Netherlands. Eastern European countries are losing them in droves to Western European countries. Canada and Mexico, probably the only country that doesn't lose physicians is America. And even here, there is rural-urban migration of physicians and nurses as well. So I think that when you look at the factors, Dr. Tinkrine has elucidated them. Most of them are economic, but it is not absolute economic. I think part of it is also relative. In other words, people look at how they are doing relative to other professionals. You know, for example, I practice in the United States here. There are only 100 United States senators, but I get paid better than a United States senator, which means that the society places a certain premium on my professional skills. I think that we need to look at not just the absolute salary. For example, a house officer in Ghana gets paid about average of 500, then it rises slightly as they become general medical officers and then specialist physicians. I'm just saying that one, it is their own economic environment that they are looking at, and the statistics that you put up there are very familiar. It's economic, then there is professional advancement or education, and there is general work satisfaction. Then there is the work equipment. For example, as I speak to you now,
maybe in the last few days it's been fixed. But dialysis, I'm told, has not been available at Kolebu for months, at least as at last week. If you go to places like RID, CT scanners and MRIs have not been functioning. In other words, there is a dearth of appropriate equipment. So when people who are highly trained, for example, I work here and I know that dialysis is very routine and I'm working in Ghana and my patients can't get that, it leads to less job satisfaction. And of course, the other point is that even once people have left, we make it more difficult for them to come back. We have these problems that Dr. Tinkran eloquently talks about, but when there are nurses abroad who want to come back, it is made very difficult for them to come back. And not only that, yes, we talk about the brain drain, but
you say when nurses, some of our nurses leave, it is made difficult for them to come back. What do you mean? And also add the perspective, Doc. You know that you say it happens everywhere, which is true. But the fact that we're placing 16th out of 53 countries in Africa and 30th globally is much more of a problem, isn't it?
Oh, it is. But and actually, I am even surprised we only play 16th. I think if you look at North America, for example, physicians from sub-Saharan Africa, we come third, Ghana, behind Nigeria and South Africa. We punch way above our weight population-wise. You look at Canada, it's the same thing. So I actually think that these statistics actually understate the significance of the problem. So I think it is a very significant problem. But I'm just saying that the reality is that we need doctors and nurses. So when those who are outside want to come in, we talk about exams, we talk about onerous procedures, about how they can come back. And then I'm even saying that while they are out there in situ, there are a lot of things that we can do to use their skills. Every year, thousands of Ghanaian physicians in the US and Britain come for holidays. There are ways that you can harness their skills. There is telemedicine, so that some of my classmates like, Professor Japon and Kumase, Dr. Flu, who are very renowned physicians here, can actually join rounds there and actually see patients. There are situations where a lot of Ghanaian physicians on faculties here can actually be here and be teaching. And the same thing goes for nurses. I'm just saying that we need to make the best of the situation. And in addition to what Dr. Tinkran said about car allowance and others, I'm looking at more significant things. Actually, Ghanaian physicians talk about the Mustafa Hiaji syndrome. What they mean when they say that there's doctors who gave decades of dedicated lives to Ghana, and then when they were in retirement, they were living in penury. So we need to look at retirement security.
Interesting.
In helping people get accommodation. Pardon me?
Your connection froze for a minute, so I thought you had ended. But please land on the point you're making.
Yeah, I am saying that we need to look at retirement security for those who are back in the system. And that young doctors used to talk during my time there about the Mustafa Hiaji syndrome. And when they said that, what they meant was they were referring to doctors who were distinguished and very respected, who had given decades, 3 to 4 decades of service. And then when they retired, they lived in penury. So we need to look at retirement security. For example, after somebody has worked for maybe 10 to 15 years, give them half of their retirement money, and then the government match it as down payment for a residence. And then the rest of their career, they are paying for it, do the same thing with vehicles. When you do those things, then they feel more invested in the system.
Right.
And then also make sure that their living circumstances matches that of their colleagues who went into politics and other professions.
Thank you for that initial submission. There's this message coming through from Caleb Obeng Ejay Mensah, who says, nurses not posted are more than those migrating. Make that also a topic for discussion. Joy News. You may have missed the media discussion. Sometimes you send in messages like this. We've had a number of conversations on that, first of all. Even in this conversation, it has come up. And I see the relevance of it, but don't make it as though we didn't have it on the chopping board. But let me come to Umar Farouk, who is a UK-based Ghanaian nurse. Umar, good morning to you.
Good morning, Benjamin. Thank you for having me, and good morning to all your viewers.
Right. How long have you been in the UK? How long did you leave Ghana to pursue nursing in the UK?
Well, I've been in the UK since August last year. So I've been here for about 10 months now.
Okay. And in Ghana, for how long did you practice?
Well, professionally, I practiced for 6 months, but not as a government of Ghana employee. I did so as a private sector nurse for about 6 months.
Okay, so let me find out from you. Of course, you were not bonded because you went through a different system. But why did you leave Ghana for the UK? What was, if I asked you for your top 3 reasons, what would you say?
So thank you very much, Benjamin. To start with, looking at what the spokesperson for the Ghana Health Service said, and
he's the director of public health.
Yeah, the director of public health for the Ghana Health Service, and also the general secretary for the GRNMA said it clearly points out the fact that, excuse me to say, as Ghanaian people, we don't even understand, what the numbers means, what exactly the numbers are. We have the GRNMA secretary talking about, the economic aspects of it. Look, the fact is that it all boils down to the economic aspect, but there is no job security. Trust me. I graduated, 3 years ago, and I had my professional license some 3 years ago. And trust me, I didn't have any hope. I didn't know when the government was going to employ me as a trained nurse. I didn't know when I was going to mechanize into the government system. I didn't know, in fact, I didn't know where my daily bread was going to come from. I was working with a private hospital. I told you, I endured, a private system in Ghana for 6 months. And trust me, this 6 months, I was paid a paltry 500 cedis a month as a degree nurse. I'd gone to the university to do 4 years as a nurse, and I was paid 500 cedis. These 500 cedis, I paid my bills, I had to pay my rent, and in fact, I had myself and then some other siblings to feed as well. So you can imagine. Just when I knew I had the opportunity to to come to a system where I'll be appreciated more as a nurse, I took it, and then I came. But the truth is that, just to remind the Director of Public Health and then the GRNMA that the issue of nurses in Ghana is way broader than we see it. We have more nurses home unemployed than we have currently employed in the system. I have been the vice president for the National Health Student Association of Ghana. I was one time a vice president, and I have a very good idea of what the numbers look like. Look, we have more than 30 private universities training nurses in Ghana. We have the government, the public nurses training, we have the private nurses training, and then we have the public universities. Almost every single public university is training nurses in the country. So at the end of the year, we have thousands of nurses churned out, annually. And our system.
So are you suggesting, Umar, that the number of nurses trained are far more than those who are leaving the country? And so if we got our act right in terms of the numbers here who are unemployed, would be able to solve this problem?
I tell you solemnly, we will be able to. Look, as I was saying, we have thousands of nurses being churned out. For instance, the University of Health and Allied Sciences, where I graduated from, my year alone produced more than 300 of us. Nurses, midwives, public health nurses. And as I speak to you, every single one of this group, except for those of us who have left the country, every single one of this group is at home with, no hope of getting being employed anytime soon.
You're saying that of your year group, the 300 or so, apart from those of you who have left the country, all the others are at home?
Every one of them is at home, except for those who have decided to take private jobs.
Wow. So tell me, you were earning 500 cedis from a private facility. I mean, if what we know from the government end is anything to go by, you could have been earning about 1,000 something, 2,000 if you were in the government setup. I mean, anyone here could correct me if I'm wrong. That is the information I have. What are you earning now in the UK? Comparatively.
Well, in the UK, I'm on what we call the Agenda for Change pay structure because I work with the UK NHS, which I'm going to, talk briefly about it and then compare the two systems. I work with the NHS, so my salary is a public knowledge. I know, as a band 5 nurse, band 5 is the starting point for registered nurses in the UK. As a band 5 nurse, starting from the bottom of band 5, I earn about, 15 pounds every hour. And I'm contracted for 37.5 hours a week. So, if you round these figures, this is, an average what I earn. That is, minus my extra shift, minus the
So you're basically telling me 15 by 37, which is the hour, which are the hours you do in a week. That would give 555 pounds. That multiplied by 4 is 2,220 pounds. And this doesn't even include the other extra hours. So let's round it up at about 3,000 pounds. You're telling me you're earning about 3,000 pounds a month compared to 500 cedis a month in Ghana.
Yes, weeks when I work very hard. I earn even more because in the UK, Sundays, Saturdays, and then nights pay more. You get about 60% of your hourly wage added to every hour you do in the night and every hour you do on Saturday. You have about 30% added to every hour you do on Saturday, and then about 60% added every hour you do on Sunday. So if I decide to be hardworking and then I don't lazy about, I could even work more than that compared to where and the work is so flexible. I sometimes work just twice a week, sometimes just 3 times a week. I just work in a way that I meet my 37.5 hours every week, and the rest
Umar, this is the interesting bit. I've just been doing some calculations. Now you say that, correct me if I'm wrong. You say even the 3,000 pounds in a week that you work hard, you get over that in terms of your add-on time. So let's peg it at 3,500 pounds. Is that a healthy figure?
Yes, it is. I'm able to pay my bills. I'm able to pay, after tax, I am able to get like 2,500 in my hands. I'm able to pay my bills. I'm able to pay, to take good care of myself. I just got married recently. I'm able to feed my wife. I'm able to, to feed my family down there. Look, I'm happy.
So you married from Ghana before you left? Is that what you're saying?
I came back to marry. Recently.
Okay. Now, Ghana, if you want to understand the situation, this is what Umar is saying. And I broke it down for you. We've done the calculation. 3,500 pounds, averagely. Okay? That would give you, and that is what he would earn in a month if we do the breakdown. I've already done the calculation. If you multiply that by a conservative figure for the pound of, let's say, about 14 cedis, yeah? 14 cedis. Yeah. 49,000 cedis. 49,000 Ghana cedis. Or let's say 50,000 Ghana cedis. Compared to 500 cedis at a private entity, or maybe 2,000 cedis at a public facility. And he's on band 5. Band 5, the lowest. He's at the lowest in the NHS. He's earning 50,000 cedis a month. I'm not trying to encourage more people to take flight. No. I'm saying that as a media person, I have to put the figures out there for ordinary Ghanaians to know and for the health authorities to work at it. You may not necessarily be able to compare and say, we're also going to pay them 50,000 cedis a month. But how do you meet them halfway to make their lives less miserable here? Umar, this is quite a situation. So with this, would you ever contemplate coming back to Ghana to practice nursing?
Ben, it is quite a dicey situation. I mean, I can't give an absolute yes or no answer. But well, as patriotic as I want to be, I mean, as a citizen of Ghana, if there's a call for me to come back and serve, well, I've been in the UK for about 9 months, and then I've get to practice stroke nursing. I mean, firsthand. I didn't have to go to school to specialize in stroke medicine. If I want to specialize in stroke medicine here, I can. But I mean, for the last 10 months I've been working as a nurse here, I've seen, what it means to take care of people with stroke. Right now, if you ask me how to thrombolyze someone, which of course I don't think it is done in Ghana firsthand. It may be done some way, but I mean the efficient way it is being done here is not what is happening in Ghana. So if you ask me to come and then give what I have to the people of Ghana, I may come, but not necessarily because of the money, but because I probably have something to give to Ghana. If we have thousands of stroke cases happening in Ghana, and if I come and then I can help, stop half of those or even 30% of those as a nurse, I'm happy to do that. But later in the future, when I've secured my family, and then when I know I'm well stable, and then I'll have nothing to lose when I come back to serve, I probably will do.
Hold for me, Umar Farouk. You've got me, like the Americans will say, you've got me shook. You've got me shaken with some of the dynamics. But let me bring in, before I bring in Dr. Franklin Essie-Adubwakwe, Director of Public Health at the Ghana Health Service. This message says, Sakwa Yunus Unique says, the job security is more of a problem than the salary is. Like Farouk, I also had a hard time getting a job, even in the private sector. And when I had one, it was on a 600 Ghana cedi salary. Dr. Bekwe, this is what we're faced with realistically. Maybe we cannot pay our nurses 50,000 Ghana cedis a month. But what practically can we do to incentivize their work, to get them to stay in Ghana?
Thank you very much. So, let me say that I work for Ghana Health. I'm the Director of Public Health. Some of the issues, I think that, as has been said by the nurses boss.
Doc, I'd appreciate it if you could speak up a bit more. Just a little more for me, please.
Yes, what I'm saying is that I think that the head of the nursing group has tried to come clear what are the issues and how it can be addressed. So those discussions, I think, go beyond me as a Director of Public Health. It was about finances. It's about resources to achieve what needs to be achieved. So that's why I talked about meeting the Vice President, and then also meaning that it needs to see how the budget issues coming.
Yeah, but they met the Vice President 2 years ago. Nothing has been done.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Is that so? I'm sure he can better explain what are the clearness for Ghana Health Service as an agency. We wholly rely on the ministry because it has to do with the budget. We go to the Ministry of Finance. So I think that it makes a lot of sense that Ghanaians should appreciate that people should get more. It's about the whole national cake. So which part are you cutting? And I think that because when you go to this side, this other side comes in. So I think those are the issues that you need to look at. Are we prepared to say that nurses and doctors should be paid more compared to others? I mean, those are issues because it's about the same cake. So where are you cutting to get more? But I think that what you can look at is this issue about waiver. I think that is something that was very useful because it helps a lot of young guys to be around because it's nice if you are driving around. So those things I think can be done. Then you're talking about the issue about the premium. I mean, if it could be maintained as it used to be, those are little things that can suffice. But to say that, let's say, the doctors and nurses to get that high amount of money, then I think that the average Ghanaian must be able to appreciate the fact that there's some relativity in terms of profession. And then that one will make way for the things to be better. I will say that the other factors that influence somebody moving out of the country, somehow, in terms of education, I mean, when Ghana, we introduced Ghana College, it helped some Ghanaians to stay. I mean, my class, almost all my friends stayed. So there could be other factors why people stay. But then what you need to do is that you need to encourage them to stay. One other issue I need to say is that the issue of the backlog needs to be cleared. Because, as you said, I think there are about 2 cohorts that are still at home. So it all has to do with the financing of the current situation, so that these issues can be cleared. The Human Resource Division or Department, what they're trying to do is that they're trying to encourage those who are, let's say, not fully professional nurses to also do a top-up so that they can also become professional. And then this issue of a backlog needs to be cleared. The other issue is those who have finished and they are at home. The issue is before they get a financial clearance, can they be used as like interim nurses to get an allowance before they get fully employed? One thing I also need to state is that the government pays about 5 or even 4 times what the private pays. And I think that one thing
but that is exactly what I said. I mean, they were talking about 500, 600, and I said that averagely you would have about 2,000 around that figure. You can correct me if I'm wrong, which is what nurses would be paid. Depending on their different grades, it would change, right?
Yes. So which is good. But one thing I want to say before I go off it, Ghanaians must be prepared to say that some category of persons should be paid more. If that is accepted, then I think that negotiations can move in that direction.
So which categories of persons should be paid more? And just add this before you leave. Umar Prophet, he says probably the best solution is, look, the numbers who are graduating from nursing school, his batch, 300. Apart from those who got, the few who got jobs with private entities and those who have traveled abroad, the rest of them are sitting at home. We can plug the situation with the exodus. We can get those who are unemployed on board. Why aren't we doing that?
Yes, as I told you, you have to do the financial clearance, and that one goes beyond the director of publishing. I think that we need to speak to the issue of finance and debt, Parliamentary Select Committee on Health and Finance. It's about how much of our cake are we prepared to invest in health, and that is one issue that which I cannot really answer. And that's why I'm saying that are we prepared to make sure that some portions of Ghanaians get more than others without agitation? That's an issue that I can answer. Ghanaians must be able to answer that question.
Dr. Siedu Bekwe, we know you have to go. We're so grateful that you took the time to join us. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Franklin Siedu Bekwe is Director of Public Health at the Ghana Health Service. I want to take a few of your messages. Some of you are saying some very interesting things. Before I come to Dr. Tenkran Chum one more time. Now, Kwame Sapong makes a certain argument, and I want to deal with what he says. He says, a media personality in a high-profile media house like Joy FM or Joy News in Ghana would earn about 100,000 Ghana cedis a year. I guess you should also encourage media personalities to also leave Ghana. And he says, you too can leave, and you are not in chains. Well, a few points of correction. The figure you mentioned, roundabouts that some media houses would be able to pay that. But I'm telling you for a fact, the media people are not paid well in Ghana. That's a conversation we can have some other day. And I'm not saying it is en masse, but if you look at it, 90+%, very few are actually paid something that is decent. The other bit, we are not encouraging people to leave. When you watch it or follow a conversation, follow it with some sort of above the board thinking. We are not, by this program, encouraging people to leave. We are highlighting the issues to find solutions. So think through the matters. Don't come here and post things as though someone were here trying to encourage people to leave. That's not the conversation. This one says, I completed or graduated in 2020, did my NSS in 2021, and I've been in the house since. The private sector pays 500 to 600 Ghana cedis. It goes on and on, but I can't read the rest. Ibrahim Umar Farouk says, you see what Dr. Franklin is saying is one of the big things in Ghana. Other cadres think nurses cannot take more salary than they are. So he's saying that is one of the chief problems. I'll end with this and go to Dr. Chum. I just joined the NHS Ibn Sraj says, I just joined the NHS 2 months now and I've saved so much already. I spend less than £70 a month on food and that is so cool. But when I was back in Ghana, I spent a lot on food. It goes on and on, but I see your message coming through. I'll read that later. Dr. Chum, so looking at the disparities, looking at the economic boons elsewhere and what we're faced with in Ghana, we also cannot say that we're all going to leave Ghana. Who will develop our country? What is the way forward?
So thank you once again. The way forward is very simple. Now, when people complete a period of training and they stay in their house for a very long time, when even you engage them, they have to be upskilled or reskilled. And whilst they are waiting, their minds go all over the places. And that is how, for instance, Farouk left the country. So if you're able to absorb the people as quickly as possible, it will stem the attrition. Number one, I'm saying that we need to raise the market premium. Let's peg it at the current basic salary, and that will give us an ample opportunity to regularize the system. Now, if you don't do anything about their allowances, my brother, they will leave. They will go. I mean, Farouk is even receiving the least amount, right? I know.
Oh, we lost you right when you were going to make a crucial point, Dr. Tenkrang. So let's see whether we can get Dr. Chum back on the line. While we wait for him, there's this message from Degura Bettinos who says, Benjamin, even those in the field currently, our welfare has not been taken proper care of because some of us are still battling with COVID or battling COVID-19 complications with our own little resources. So you're basically saying you contracted some of these, maybe you have long COVID or something, and you're battling them on your own. It is only God that is protecting us, but if the trend continues, we will even leave to Burkina Faso and forget about Ghana. Wow. But Burkina Faso also stands at 7.1 in terms of the brain drain, so that would be interesting. Dr. Tenkrang, you were making an important point about Umar's rate and how much he's paid. Please go back and continue. Hello, Dr. Tenkrang Chum. Maybe we'll try to see whether we can get you on phone so you can make your point, because it's very important what you were saying. Let me bring in Dr. Arthur Kennedy. Doc, you've heard it all. You've already said that, look, you are even paid better than a United States senator. They place a premium on you. Why aren't we able to do that in Ghana? And look at the consequences. What are your thoughts?
Well, priorities. First, like the others have said, when people graduate, we should post them quicker. In the US, everybody knows that on 1st July, new doctors start as interns. Thousands of people, and yet every year they start on time. I think that this financial clearance delays is incompetence. We can plan ahead. We know how many people are going to graduate. We know we need them. So I don't understand why it should take more than a year sometimes to place people. And the other factors that they've said are important. The fact of the matter is that when they talk about the cake, health industry, we pledged in Abuja in 2001 with other African countries that we're going to spend 15% of our budgets on healthcare. The highest Ghana has gotten to was 4.5% some years ago. And last year we were at 4%. So we need to spend more on healthcare and more on the retention. And when you look at the other priorities on which government spends money, yes, the cake is very difficult to slice and dice, but I think that there's a lot of wastage in the cake. And spending on healthcare is not selfish or focused just on healthcare personnel. It is for the general health of the population. So one, we need to increase the size of the cake. We need to direct more to healthcare, and we need to place people quicker. We need to cut down wastage. We need to give people opportunities of professional fulfillment by getting equipment where they work, by helping them to upgrade their skills, by getting supportive and considerate bosses, because sometimes people just leave because their work environment is not conducive to their professional development or happiness. And then as Rwanda have shown, when you govern a country well, more health professionals stay. Less Rwandans are going into exile, even though they are not paid that well. More of them are coming back because of a meritocracy in promotions and people getting scholarships to go abroad.
Let me bring back Dr. Chum. Doc, hopefully we can continue with the conversation this time. You were making a point about what Umar gets being even the least and what you know.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is that what my brother Farouk even mentioned is somebody on the list of the band. All right. So it tells you that quite senior people over there are collecting quite sums of money. But that is not the issue in contention. There is no way we can pay salaries as is being paid out there. I reckon that. So what we need to do is to be very intentional about what we need to give to our members. So I've just suggested, look, let's raise the market premium. After all, people are leaving, so we need retention premiums. All right? If anything at all, we should even give retention premiums to those who have stayed or who are sacrificing to stay. Now, just to add, because I quickly have to move into a VSF for something else. I think that we need to also employ the new people that qualify, because when they stay in the house for a very long time, their mind begin to wander about, and that is how Farouk even ended up in the United Kingdom. If we absorb them as quickly as possible, they retain whatever competencies that they acquired in school. If they stay in the house for a very long time, we need to upskill them or reskill them. Okay, and that comes with cost to the government and of course to the employer. So I think that as a matter of urgency, we need to look at the service conditions of nurses and midwives in Ghana. It's terrible. Even if you are a nurse and you are sick and you go to hospital, you have to pay from your own pocket. Despite the fact that you are paying so much money towards the national health insurance already. Maybe at another time we can have a conversation how much nurses and midwives pay towards the national health insurance, yet when they are sick, they need to pay out of pocket.
Thank you for those submissions that you've made. Right before we wrap the conversation, gentlemen, let's go to the regions. In recent times, we've spoken about the Ashanti region and 300 leaving just within a short space of time this year. Ohiming Tewia, my colleague, joins the conversation. Ohiming Tewia, do walk us through what you've been gathering so far in terms of this brain drain and nurses.
Thank you, Benjamin. The situation in the Ashanti region.
I have an appointment at 8:45.
It's a bit dire because, according to the Regional Health Director, Dr. Emmanuel Kojotin-Prine, 304 nurses applied for a leave of absence, and all the 304 nurses in the first quarter of this year had left the shores of the country in search of greener pastures. And he says, though they are not done with auditing, the number of people applying for leave of absence is happening on weekly basis. So on every week, the directorate received not less than 10 applications. My checks from both the regional hospital at Atonsu Agogo, which is commonly referred to as Kumasi South Hospital, indicate that many of the health professionals, especially nurses, have left, and is giving the managers a hectic time in arranging for who to work at the facility. So this has affected the work schedule, what they call the duty rosters of the facility. For instance, at the male surgical ward, out of 20 nurses that are posted there, the last check being last week, 20 of them were on duty, and the next day, 12 has left, and it's left only 8 at post. So the hospital has been forced to sort of give more additional work to the staff available at post. The management described it as a rapture-like, exodus of health professionals, because you meet somebody today, you are not too sure who will leave tomorrow. Tomorrow you have a meeting with the person, you go sit in a meeting, and the information you pick is that the person has left the country and the person is not available. From the Komfanochi Teaching Hospital, the story is not different. And from other health facilities that I have checked, there are instances where lab technicians have left, radiographers have also left, leaving the equipment behind, leaving the managers a hectic time in finding replacement for some of these areas that require special skills before they are able to operate. So out of the 304, I did my own checks. I spoke to, let's say, 10 nurses. Out of the 10 nurses I spoke to, 8 of them have started the process or about to begin the process to travel abroad. So in the Ashanti region, they say it's not only about working conditions, it's also about the money and the economy of the country, where you have money but you can't get anything out of the money. So they also want to also go travel abroad so that they can also have better working schedules and also better working conditions where they have opportunities to also upgrade themselves. And so Ben, I would say it's all over the region, but those who are hard hit are the teaching hospital, Komfanoche, the regional hospital, and then some district hospitals as well.
Well, Ohiming, thank you for that update. I don't know, though, whether the authorities you've spoken to have any means, any plan. How are they going to resolve this very quickly? Did they share a plan with you?
I spoke to the Deputy Director General of Ghana Health Service, Dr. Anthony Adolfo, who says for now it's very difficult. If the people are leaving because of pounds and dollars, it's very, very difficult because Ghana's currency, our city cannot even match the dollar and then the pounds. But as a health institution, what they are trying to do is to give a thought to it and try to sort of open up, employ more people, and also give opportunities, training opportunities to those who are here, so they can also benefit from the service. But in general, he says it's very, very difficult to retain some of these professionals who are leaving. And there are those with a lot of skills, those in mental health, those are the theaters, emergency service providers, they are the ones leaving.
Ohiming Teria, thank you so much. Ohiming Teria is with the health desk here at Joy News. Of course, he's also with Love 99.5 FM. That is the tale of the tape. Before you deliver your wrap-up comments, about 40 seconds each, please permit me to walk through these messages. Now, this one was sent to me by, let me just leave it there. The person says, Ben, good morning. The nurses who just finished their rotation in June never received their national allowance for the whole duration of 12 months. 12 months, no national allowance. They were same as other tertiary students who served the nation in their obligation as national service personnel. Now, new ones just started this month. Because of our benevolence, we were overburdened by the needs of these professionals by providing their rent and monthly chop. We are all stressed financially. And I don't know whether you want me to mention your name. I just saw, do you want me to mention your name, sir? Let me know. But then this one says, meanwhile, the live stream, Ghanaian nurses are working harder and spending more time at work than even in the West, yet they are paid less. I'll be reading short portions of your message. This one, Louis Azure says, with the issue of returning to Ghana in the future, it is not bad, but the system currently does not allow that, and the leaders of our institutions will go to every length to frustrate you. So even those who want to return, there are mechanisms in place to frustrate you, so to speak. Caleb Ajay Mensa says, Akakbo, kindly note that the authorities should do their statistics well. How many nurses retire? How many have completed and are yet to start rotation? How many have finished rotation and are yet to be posted? All these people should be factored properly in to help feed the health sector with personnel to work. Rana Desi says, we have more than 1,000 nurses unemployed. What is preventing government from engaging them in the service? Well, you know about the financial clearance and all of that. All right, Kwame Sapong comes back with, Kwame Sapong, I really don't get your thinking, and I don't know whether you're thinking as a Ghanaian or just throwing things in there for whatever reason. But you say nurses even pay, you say a developing country trying to compare our wages to a first world country. Chai, I don't think you're following the conversation. I'm not going to read anything else from you. Caleb says, nurses even pay hospital bills when they are sick. Ibn Siraj says, the financial clearance delay is on the back of incompetence, and I agree with Dr. Arthur. My first day at work in the UK, I filled my forms for salary, and I was paid at the end of the first month. There are so many other messages. I'm sorry, I can't read all of them. By the way, the messages about not being paid for 12 months, national service personnel, and then the benevolence of others, that was sent through by engineer Mahama. We've hosted him many times on our flooding situation in this country. Gentlemen, final thoughts. Dr. Arthur Kennedy, I'll start with you, and then I'll go to Umar. Doc.
Okay, thank you. First, let's pay people better. Abuja Declaration said we'll spend 15% of our budget on health. We are now at 4%. Let's be more competent. It is unacceptable that people will graduate and sit at home for sometimes 12, 18 months or 3 years before they can work. These problems are above the heads of Ghana Health Service and regional directories. The presidency and parliament must engage the problems so that they can be solved, and bosses must be more nurturing and more to the point. We should exploit the skills of those abroad and get them to contribute, and we should make it easier for them to return when they want to. When you need nurses and doctors, it is not wise to put obstacles in the way of their retirement.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arthur Kennedy. You always make it so simple. Thank you, sir. Umar, from where you sit, what do you think can be done about the situation? I've heard something about, there may be a policy where for every nurse that is taken, some token is given to our government. Is that a solution?
So, Ben, coming in, I wanted us to provide solution to this. Right on this show, but I don't think it is really possible as it stands. But then, in my opinion, they're suggesting that some token should be paid for every individual that is taken out of the country. Is only going to breed more corruption, and also, as said by Dr. Arthur Kennedy, at the back of the Abuja Declaration, if the cake is small, then government should think about baking another cake, a bigger cake, and also, let me use this opportunity to clear this. There is this issue of a red list country, red listed countries, which Ghana is part. The red list doesn't prevent, employers in the UK from employing in Ghana. No, what it does is that it prevents agencies from holding job fairs in Ghana, just like it happens in Dubai and then in Philippines, etc. But it means, as a Ghanaian nurse, if you want to practice in Ghana, if you feel you'll be appreciated more in the UK, you can apply to any employer in the UK. If they find you fit for the job role, they will employ you, and then they can start doing your paperwork, and then you can come to the UK. Nothing stops you from coming to the UK as a nurse. Anyway, to wrap up, let me say a big shout out to my friend Pius Lugudo Brian, who first interviewed me on this same topic. He's an aspiring SRC president in US, where I graduated. Pius Brian, good morning. And then, to your viewers, I'll say thank you very much. And I think the solution is that our politicians need to be truthful to the people. We need to tell the people what it is. We need to be open up to the people, and it shouldn't be politics as usual.
All right.
On the issue of
Umar, we have to go. So very briefly on that point.
Yeah, on the issue of nurses allowance, I wanted to touch on that. It is it is outmoded. It has outlived its purpose. As a substitute to that, I have a brilliant idea I could give out anytime. It is working somewhere else, and I think it will work in Ghana, where student nurses, student medical doctors pay for the allowance they are going to earn every month. And I tell you, it is more efficient. You get people to work for whatever they are going to earn. It's not what is happening now, where people are paid to sit at home.
All right. So maybe that's a proposal you should run by the Ghana Health Service. And do we still have Dr. Chum? Dr. Chum, are you still with us?
Yes, please. I'm still here.
Okay, so you have the final bite.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity.
Very briefly, please. I'm sorry. Very briefly.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you for the opportunity. And I think that, as I recounted earlier on,
We need to prioritize the competencies, the skills of nurses and midwives, and pay them commensurate salaries and allowances. Immediately, what we can do, as I suggested earlier on, is to raise the market premium. That will give us the ample opportunity to look out for other medium to long-term solutions. But the immediate-term solution is to tackle the economic situation in which nurses and midwives find themselves in Ghana. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Now, Amenla Chia Akbole says, my sister completed national service last month and ... We nurses suffer here in Ghana, especially those in primary healthcare. That is Burma Yabua. My final one, Imoro Abdul Jalil Bakrakoji says, Ben, even common apparatus such as BP machines and basic equipment are not there to work with. So when we highlight these issues and the likes of, sometimes I get so passionate about these things. When you see Kwame Sapon coming in, throwing dust in our gari, so to speak, you can share your thoughts, all right, but be patriotic about it. Don't just sound a certain way because you want to sound a certain way. How do we solve the problem? That's why we're here, Mr. Sapon. Anyway, this has been our conversation on health and the flight en masse of our nurses. If we don't talk about it and tomorrow you go to hospital and you don't get a nurse, you will come back and say the media is not doing its work. Now, before I tell you what we're going to do next on the show, water is life, and I'm going to be taking a sip of Awake Purified Drinking Water when I go on that break. It's premium purified water treated through a strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. And guess what? They have perfect sizes for everyone. You're thinking of the kids, 330 ml backpack, they're good to go. If you're thinking you want more water, 500 milliliters, 750 milliliters, or 1.5 liters for those who always want to drink more. But if you're thinking of something for your office or home, how about their 19-liter jar bottles, which are ideal for the situation? All you must do now is drink Awake Purified Drinking Water wherever you go, and you will get quality hydration. It's another product from Casapreco Company Limited. Now, the heartwarming part. For every bottle you buy, a donation is made to the National Cardiothoracic Center, especially as treating heart disease is so expensive. Each time you buy Awake Drinking Water, you put a coin in there for such people. If you'd like to purchase in bulk, the number to call 0262 351 251. 0262 351 251. This advert, of course, is FDA approved. When we return, Bernice Abubedu Lanza will be taking you to the Volta region, Ho to be specific. What has been happening there? The flooding and the destruction it left in its wake. How do we tackle flooding in Ghana? What is the way forward? That conversation after the break.
A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for staying here on the AM show. Over the weekend, you may have heard that story about flooding in the Volta region town of Ho. Usually when we report floods, Ho doesn't come to mind, and this was quite a surprise to many of us. But what exactly caused this? And we've been hearing some allegations of buildings and waterways, others claiming otherwise and saying there was a certain bridge that was flooded and so it overflowed banks and all that. Our man, Fred Kwame Asare, is there for us in the Volta region of Ho. He's been assessing the situation. As we are told, millions of cedis in terms of properties have been washed away. Fred, give us a quick wrap of what happened over the weekend and what we've been hearing from NADMO and other officials. Hello, Fred? Hello, Fred, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right, I was asking you to give us a quick wrap of what happened over the weekend and what officials have been saying.
Okay, so on Saturday at about 3 p.m. it started raining here. Just a normal rain. There was no storm that was serious, but it's just a normal rain, but then it was heavy. So it rained up till about 5 p.m. when we started seeing videos on social media of flooding in Civic Center. This particular area floods anytime during the rainy season, anytime it rains heavily into. One shop that is belongs to one woman popularly known as Awuji suffered a great effect. In the back of the shop, the flood broke through the back of the shop and then swept away everything in the shop. They dealt in textiles, jewelry, and then other materials. They were all swept away. He mentioned to me that the items ran to about millions of cedis, and he would not be able to give me the exact figure as at Saturday evening when I spoke to her. The Ghana Fire Service officials were also at the scene, and then they tried to help her salvage some of the items that were left in the shop. Just a few of them were left in the shop. They salvaged the items and then took them away. So now they have condoned the area. They have barricaded the area. They have barricaded the area. So nobody is supposed to go to the area. It's described as a disaster zone at the moment. But what residents are saying is that erecting of structures along the Vesta Hill, that is the uphill Vesta Hill, it's also called Kabakaba Hill, is the major cause of flooding downstream. They are saying that authorities and then landowners in that area do not have any plan as to how buildings should be erected, so that when it rains or when it rains and then water runs up from upstream, it will be directed into drains and then it will not run into homes and shops downstream. And they are also saying that the town or the drains in the town, especially around Bankwe, Civic Center, and then other areas downstream, are not big enough to contain the rainwater or flood water anytime it rains. So they are suggesting that if the need be, or if the authorities can redesign drainage systems in the entire whole community, whereas anytime it rains, they would have a bigger drain, or there would be a big drain that can contain the flood water so that it will not have to run into their home. The authorities are also saying that per their investigations, they have noticed that people have also built along waterways or in waterways somewhere around powerhouse, medical villages, so that some people tried to divert streams because they wanted to build at a particular section where the streams, but then they built across the streams and then created a small gutter behind.
Too bad. We lost Fred Kwame Asare there, but he was just narrating to us what occurred over the weekend and what officials as well as residents have been saying. But I'm so grateful because I've been joined by Mr. Benjamin Pudo, who is MP for Ho Central, and Divine Bosson, who is MCE for Ho. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining the conversation. So let me start off from where we lost my colleague Fred Kwame Asare, and I'll start with you, Mr. Bosson, because you and other officials are attributing what occurred to people building in waterways and diverting a certain drain or something of the sort. My question to you is, where were the authorities when these people were putting up these buildings? And why was nothing done about it?
Thank you very much. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I want to use your medium to once again sympathize with the people who have lost their West. I'm so grateful to God Almighty that, irrespective of what happened, no life has been lost. And that is a very, very, very good thing for us and to the good people of them. Speaking also in a capacity as somebody who has technical knowledge when it comes to disaster management, because I was the former regional director of NADMO Water Region, and to say, talk about people building on a waterway, it is something that I knew in the past. It is something that I've been dealing with, even as a NADMO director then, and now as a municipal chief executive. The first major exercise I carry on in the office as a chief executive is to do with a project, something I name or I christen Operation Let's Get the Road Open, under the concept, the road train. It is a concept that we cleared people who have built on roads and people are built at unauthorized places to create more access for both vehicular and then in situations like this, gutters for waters to have their free flow. So it is something I've been dealing with. I'm done with the first phase. By August to November, I'll be starting the second phase. And it is something that I know that people have built on a waterway. We have not waited for the directive from the president before we commence with it. We have already started.
Mr. Boston, when you say you're dealing with it, what exactly do you mean? Are you demolishing homes and properties?
I have in the past pulled down structures that are on the waterways, pulled down structures that are built on roads. That is what I meant by we have been dealing with, and will continue to deal with them. To talk about the last Saturday downpour, rainfall that lasted between 4 to 5 hours. It poured down heavily without anywhere like that in all areas. It comes with some form of disasters, but not talking only about the natural way of the downpour that may cause the kind of havoc we have experienced last Saturday, and we went around to do some assessments yesterday. There could also be an artificial one, that's the man-made one. Man-made because people who want to have a comfortable life, then they think they must cause the discomfort of others. And you listen to the earlier report from your correspondent here, people built and they encroached into the waterways. People even directed their waste, including the manhole that contained the fecal matter, into the drains. Water is such that naturally it has a natural path. And when we try to encroach each natural path, it directs or it looks for the next natural path. And accidentally, when it's looking for the next natural path, it will end up being a guest in our rooms or our home. That was what happened the last time. People are planting plantation. You know, at the bank of these drains is so fertile. So people are using the grounds to plant plantain, palm plantations, and other fruit trees and vegetables around the banks of these drains. Because the area used to be so fertile, whenever it falls heavily, those things fall down naturally and move into the water and become a stoppage for the flow of the water. That is what we are seeing on your screen now. These are some of
we can see that. We can see clearly what's happening. But just help me understand. You are talking about these challenges that could have possibly led to what we saw over the weekend. It takes a while for people to grow maize or any form of crop for it to mature to this point and cause flooding like we've seen. Is it the case? Is it the case? Please, is it the case that when you see these things, you have a challenge dealing with them immediately, or?
I am one individual. Even if you speak to my good friend, Honorable MP, now he will tell you I am a proactive person. I don't wait for things to get out of hand before I try to do the fireman approach. When the fire is burning, then you come and pour water into it. No. Baho is becoming a very vast area. And as an individual and a team, we cannot be at every place at all times. And when information has not gotten to us, it will be difficult for us to deal with some of these issues. At the place of the spot of this action, the disaster spot, it is not that the people who are around there planted this thing around their side there, but it was taken from a distance, and the debris is is what blocked the passive.
Mr. Boston, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you shortly, but let me now bring in Mr. Benjamin Pudo, and I want to mention that we've been joined by Ivy Ameuga. She's NADMO director in the Volta region. I'll be going to her shortly. Thank you for holding on, Mr. Pudo. This happened largely in your constituency. Your constituents have been affected. We are trying to do a post-mortem on what exactly caused this to happen, because when you hear of floodings, to this magnitude, you hardly will hear the Volta region being mentioned. Per your own assessment, residents say the drains are small. We're just hearing from the MCE that some people have built in waterways. What is your assessment of the situation, and what are you learning to be the cause of this incident?
First of all, I want to thank you, Joy News, for taking interest in the disaster that has plagued my city. I also want to share in the grief of the victims who suffered this disaster, especially Madam Awume. You see, in Ho, this particular rainstorm or torrential rain is peculiar. For a long time, it hasn't rained in this manner. The rains came in and stayed for a continuous period of upwards of 3 hours. There was no storm, but as they drained down their lane to find their level, so much destruction took place. We have heard how the water flowed down from Abakaba Hill through the drains in Bankwe, then to the barracks, then to cross the Plough Road between the Ho Polyclinic and Trafalgar Hospital, otherwise known as the Ho Teaching Hospital. It caused a lot of havoc. And I think that the principal or fundamental cause for this is the size of the drains. They need to be expanded so that where the volume of water is such large, like the one we have, it can find space to move without causing the havoc that it has caused. The walls of the palace, the fence walls for the palace forecourt grounds have also been affected. And the woman's shop, which is just close by, is the one which has been devastated. You see all her wares being brought out by the rain, the flood, and shipped away. So if we can expand the drains and make them deeper, and also get our people to stop dropping waste into the drains carelessly, I'm sure that we can solve part of the problem.
Right, Mr. Pudo, I've been joined by the NADMO director for the region. Let me just take her quick thoughts and I'll come back to you. Good morning to you, ma'am, and thank you for connecting with us. We just heard from the MP for the area about how peculiar Saturday's incident was. What is the character of floods in Ho over the years, and what do you think made this one different?
Thank you and good morning to you all viewers. We've experienced floods in Ho over the years, but this Saturday's own was very, very severe. The impact was severe, and we have been overwhelmed with what we saw on Saturday. The reasons, yesterday a team of comprising of the assembly engineers, the MC, myself and my team, NADMO municipal and the whole team went around and we were able to point out some structures that have been constructed on waterways, being one of the causes, and indiscriminate littering of the drains that we have. People intentionally just throw their rubbish in the drains that we have, which made it to get choked once there is a little rain. And then we realized that we have some engineering problems about the drain. So those were some of the causes that we have identified. Yesterday I've spoken with the hydrology department. I spoke with the boss who told me he's in Accra, but he'll be coming down for us to take him around to give us expert advice on what can be done about the drain that we have currently.
We understand that the rains fell for about 4 to 5 hours. Is this something you would say, I mean, could not have been avoided even if you had storm drains? You know, and even in advanced countries, you see that when nature takes its course, and when I say that, I mean when you have very heavy rains, there's sometimes really nothing you can do about it. But is this a situation like that, or you strongly believe that this could have been averted?
The situation, I would say, this is a natural disaster, but I feel the impact could have been lesser if these causes that we have identified were not to obstruct the free flow of the rainwater, as in the choked gutters being a result of indiscriminate pouring of waste into the gutters. At least the impact would have been quite minimum than what we witnessed.
Help me understand, beyond responding to incidents like this, how NADMO works. Do you, for example, go around ensuring that there are no buildings and waterways in a proactive sense of your work? Because you're now identifying after the fact that people were building in waterways, the drains could have been, could have been expanded. The width of the drains could have been expanded to contain more water. Beyond reacting to incidents of flood and disasters, what does NADMO do in the proactive sense? And I want you to be as practical as you can on this score.
Thank you for this particular question. NADMO, we do a lot. We have one aspect that we talk about hazard mapping. We identify possible hazards in the community, like dilapidated buildings, human activities that may cause disasters of this nature. But NADMO, as in pulling down structures, unauthorized structures and things, NADMO don't have the mandate yet to pull down structures that have been built on waterways. Our aspect is to identify and inform the assembly, give them reports, because they give permits to people to build. So the assemblies have the final say as to whether to react to whatever advice NADMO has given them.
Did this happen in the Volta region? What you're citing, was there ever a case where NADMO did its own assessment and told the municipal assembly that, look, we are seeing a potential problem, this building is going to cause, or that particular drain or otherwise? Did it happen in the Volta region?
Yes. Thankfully, the FC now was the former NADMO director. Hence, during his tenure, me being deputy, I'm very much aware of some measures that we have suggested to the assembly. So I'm only hopeful that he being in the seat now as a former disaster manager can also expedite action on things that we have been informing the assembly over the years to do.
But since you took over, have you done any of those assessments? Because according to him, Just in this interview, the whole area is fast developing, and it's become quite a vast area to supervise. But since you took over, has anything like that happened?
Yes, I'll say since I took over, the municipal director in their various reports that they always send copies to the assembly have identified some structures that need to be removed. So I'll say ever since I took over, those per the reports I always get on my table, such advices have been given.
All right, and Mr. Bosson, have you acted on the advice given you by NADMO? And are you able to tell us in specifics, maybe this building in this area or that area was pulled down because NADMO cautioned us about the potential of it causing havoc when it rains? Hello, Mr. Bosson. Well,
hello.
All right, great.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please, did you get my
me?
question? Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I listened to you. I listened to your question, and I want to say that several buildings were pulled down.
Which ones? I want you to be very practical. So if the people of Ho are watching, they can pinpoint or they can testify to those buildings having been pulled down.
I'm going to call an area for you. One church, a building with a wall around powerhouse on the roadside was pulled down. When you come to Doko Kope, around the cemetery, several buildings built on a way and a waterway, both for vehicular and water, was pulled down. When you come to Zion Zion Junction, something we call Blissam Bypass, buildings were pulled down there because I knew of these things before I became municipal chief executive. So based on several reports that we've made to the assembly, and because NADMO, as stated by my successor, mentioned hasn't gotten the power yet through the LI to do some of these. They solely depend on that at a time when the thing has become something that people are living with for a very long time, and you are coming just within 1.5 years to correct this mistake that has been there over ages. You know the opposition and the those are some of the we are facing. But notwithstanding, we have achieved some of these goals.
Mr. Bosson, it always beats my mind whenever we hear about buildings in waterways, because there's such a stringent process that people have to go through to get a permit to build, and it always beats my mind how we are able to allow. And I'm just landing on that point. So you've mentioned about 5 or so buildings that have been pulled down.
I can go on and go on.
Yes, okay, so you have more of them. So the particular buildings you identified are still being in waterways which caused this particular flood. Is it the case that you didn't know they existed if you have been able to demolish a lot of those buildings? Is it the case that you didn't know they existed, or there are projects that are just starting, or what exactly is the case? Why is it that the ones that you are attributing to have caused this flood are still sitting in the waterways?
Some of these structures or buildings have been there for ages. Hello?
I'm listening to you.
Some of these buildings have been there for ages. Some are as old. If you listen to the woman who spoke on your station this morning or yesterday night, Madame Awunye, she was only 16 years when she came to live in the area, meaning before she came there at the age of 16 years, somebody was using the place, and she's now 54 years, meaning these buildings has been there for ages, for centuries, and it is still there. At the time, they were not causing any problem. But as development continues, you know, development is so dynamic. And the dynamism that comes with the development, as development continues, we now realize that this and that building, something needs to be done with, and we are just doing some of these things. To talk about permitting, at whole assembly, since I became an MCE, your permit may not last with us more than a month. Within a month, you are cleared to go and do your building, and we have some measures put in place to support the environment, like building the assemblies, prescribe a drainage system if you are the last man building at the roadside, planting of number of trees on your compound, and this thing will be followed until you are given your final certificate from the assembly after completion of your building. So we are doing our best, but maybe our best is not enough. We just have to step up the game. But on Saturday, what happened? I want to put it on record. It has affected a lot of roads. Some communities have been cut off. Those who have their cars in town before the rainfall cannot go back to their homes. Those who have their cars in their house before the rainfall cannot drive their car out of their homes. We are only fortunate that no school or no public structure is affected, but roads in particular, electricity disconnections, water disconnections, and road are very, very, very great in the municipality.
Please hold on for me. Hold on for me, Mr. Bosson, and let me just go back to the MP for the area, and then I'll come back to you for your concluding remarks. And thank you for holding on, Mr. Kodo. So your main job as an MP, I understand, and I know, is to be a lawmaker, right? And that's why the MCE is there and the other local authorities are there to foster development and all. But what are your general thoughts about the way forward for the people of Ho to ensure that this does not recur? Hello, Mr. Kodo. Kindly unmute, sir, if you can hear me. Hello, Mr. Kodo, if you can hear me, kindly unmute your device.
Okay. So can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. So I was saying that this is not the first time flood or severe rains have created problems for us in Ho, except that this particular one is in west of Martinamidu than Gantuan. We have had this experience from Ho Bankwe through Anglokoji to Barat. That alone was enough warning for us to expand the drains over there and deepen them.
And you didn't. So you admit that you failed? I'm saying that I can hear you perfectly. So I'm saying that it was enough warning signs for you, but you failed.
Yes, it was enough warning for us.
You failed to act on that.
To expand the drains, but we didn't do that. I'm sure that part of the contributory factor will be funds, but we now have a fund for secondary city development. I think the MCE should, with his team, prioritize these drains as part of utilization of that fund, because we approved from Parliament some amount for the elevation of the bridge at Ho Polyclinic, but we can't find out, we don't know what has happened to that project. So the Assembly needs to prioritize that using this fund, or start it little by little from its allocation of the common fund. That is the way out. I can vouch that the MCE has cleared some portion of roads which were occupied by builders. But that place from Dome to the SSB Bank area is a little far away from the drain, the main drain which is down the valley when you are going from the market. So I don't think that alone would have contributed to any blockage of the drainage. That place wouldn't have. So we have to look at the drain specifically. And our planning department must be up and doing. Get to the areas that people have put structures along the drains. And then, demolish them to expand the bridges and the waterways. That is what will solve this problem, because I can assure you that more rains will come. This is another significant warning to us that it could be worse if we do not take the necessary actions now.
Thank you for your time this morning. And that's Benjamin Podo. He is MP for Ho Central. And in there, he admits that something could have been done to avert this. Let me end with you, Divine. Divine Boston is MCE for Ho. So what are the next steps? I'm asking because we've seen some buildings collapsed. We've seen walls that have been broken, pillars that have been affected. In fact, we understand from our reports on the ground that the area has been cordoned off. But I wish we had the NADMO regional director on. But since you're MC, I'm sure you can also answer this question. What is the plan to test the intent?
Also the chairman of the Disaster Management Committee at the municipal level.
Fantastic. So what is the plan to check the integrity of the buildings that appear to be standing, seeing the nature of the floods and the force with which the water was moving, so that we are sure that buildings are still, have the integrity that they need to have people dwell in them or work in them, so we don't have a disaster after the disaster.
Thank you, my beautiful sister. I want to disagree with some aspect of the submission of my honorable MP. He is Komla.
Please, you have to be quick about it. Please, you have to be quick about it.
You see, we cannot do any work on that major bridge at Donokoji, Trafalgar Road, that's serving between Ho and Aflao, without constructing a bypass. That is why Assembly, by the end of this month, we are commencing a 2.45 kilometer length of bypass to serve that purpose. And my government, who has a plan and vision for the good people of Ho, is prepared to do something on that road. If they have passed something in Parliament, it's not in the Assembly yet, and I can't speak to that. To talk about what happened the last time, truly disaster is something that we have to live with. And I would advise we should adopt the Asian status, especially Japanese method, that BBB, when it ever disaster occurred, we should be able to build back better. That will be something that Assembly will be pushing from now. And I have to mention with a heart of gratitude, when Togbe Apede called me yesterday, that I should put a holistic measure in place to have a final solution to all these problems. And he gave me some instances that he will be of good help to partner with government so that we rebuild some or build the storm drains that need to be done. As an MC, I have packaged some of these things to Ministry of Works and Housing earlier. And last time I went, I was told 2 was considered. Because I know that these are the problems in Ho, we are having a plans to at least have final solution. If not final, have some measures put in place that when these things occur, it will not affect the masses as it did the last time. Normally, Ho normally has a heavy downpour during September and October. And this year alone, from June to July, we had this kind of rain about 3 times already. It's also the confirmation of the climate change issue that we have to deal with. So we must come on the table as the stakeholders.
Yeah, Mr. Basson, to my question, we are running out of time. My question to you is, we've seen that walls are broken, pillars are showing, the integrity of some buildings have been greatly affected. And I'm asking you, as the MCE, what the plan is to ensure that every building that has survived the flood is, tested to ensure that people can dwell and work in there, so you don't have a disaster after disaster.
In a collaboration with NADMO and the Assembly, we will do that testing, and then those that we have already identified, I've sent my men onto the ground to commence pulling down some of them. They cannot stand because they are already standing as a threat to commuters of the area. Therefore, they must go down. And as the assessment of the final assessment is done by NADMO and my engineering department, those things will be carried on. Thank you.
Thank you too. I'm grateful for your time this morning. That's Divine Boson. Earlier you heard MP for Ho Central, Benjamin Kudu, and we had the NADMO director for the Volta region also joining, Ivy Amewuga. Well, it's now time to get interactive with you. I'll be back shortly. Do stay. Thank you for staying here on the AM show. And when you see him, you know it's time to get interactive with you. The numbers to call 0302211691. I would have time to pick just about 2 calls. So please, when you call us, remember the rules. Reduce the volume of your television set and keep your comments straight to the point. We'll love to hear what you have to say today. We've been discussing quite a lot. We've been talking about the exodus of nurses from Ghana, especially to the UK and the United States. Thankfully, we got a Ghanaian nurse to share his story with us. And also we've been talking about the floods in Ho and hearing from those in authority responsible for managing the townships and ensuring that such things do not occur, right? So do call us and share your thoughts on any of these with us. We are willing to hear what you have to say. But that was some interesting conversation on the nurses leaving the country, and also to say that we got a lot of engagements on social media. All right, we have a first caller, Abukari from Tamale. Hello, let's hear you, please.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, this is Abukari. I'm calling from Tamale. Regarding, I watched your conversation regarding the flooding at Ho. You see, in generally, I have seen that most of our assemblies has a very big problem. You see, every municipality has its waterways. And you can imagine how long it will take someone to build on a waterway. Yet the assembly will come and tell you they never had any information about it. Just closer to my house, there's a waterway. I stay opposite, just around the UDS, Tamale Jungu campus. There's a waterway. That waterway, has been turned into a housing building area. They have no permit, yet they are building. And the assembly is doing nothing about it. One day, the area will start getting floods. Then they'll say they never knew someone has built here. What is wrong with the assembly putting up a mechanism to have an inspection team that can always inspect the waterways, even if it is twice in a year? I believe because from January to June, if you have done an inspection and no one is building, from June to December, if you count for the next exercise, I don't believe we can have up to 10 houses already built in that short space. And once someone's property is pulled down because it's built on the waterway, others who have that intention will get scared of that. And that is what we are saying. You see even people building on roads. No one cares. And when disaster starts, then the assembly will even come wanting to blame people. Whose job is it? I am an ordinary citizen. Do I have the right to go and pull down someone's property like this? It is only the assembly who has the right to do this. So I think our assemblies should sit up.
Thank you so much, Abukari. I appreciate your your call and you sharing your thoughts with us. But that's always the question, Benjamin, isn't it? That, I mean, why do we sit on for these things to happen? People don't build overnight. You understand?
It's amazing. A structure cannot be put up no matter how quickly, even in 6 months. Usually it would be longer than that. So I completely agree with him. Are we saying that when those structures are put up, the assembly is completely oblivious to it?
And there actually is an inspectorate division in the assembly, because we sometimes see on buildings, stop work, produce permit. So there are people whose job it is to do that. Well, we have a last caller joining us from Nima. Hello, let's hear you, please.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
My regard to your colleague there.
Benjamin,
spent a long time. This is Kosami from Nima.
Kosami, let's hear you.
Hi, Kosami.
Thank you. It's been a long time. I want to talk about, Benjamin knows my passion about, local government and decentralization. I think we have refused to allow the structures to work. Why am I saying this? I just listened to the caller who went on before I came on. Look, the eyes of the assembly is the unit committee. Can somebody tell me how the unit committees are functioning within their localities? You see, they are with the people to educate the people on their rights and obligations. But we have decided that we will not allow the structures to be effective at the ground there, so that people will be, the awareness will be there. So people continue to, doing the wrong thing, and the assembly sit down unconcerned. Telling that they don't know what is going on at the ground there. How can you know what is going on at the ground there when you are not allowing people to participate in all these things that is happening to us?
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kosami. That's all time will allow us, Benjamin. So clearly, there are concerns about how decentralized our decentralized system is. Well, that'll be all for today's show. We appreciate your company. God willing, tomorrow we are back again with another exciting edition, which puts you at the heart of everything that we do. I'm Bernice Abubedu Lansa.
And I'm Benjamin Akakpo.
Right, take care.